Chapter 132. As the flames dissipated, the monsters that emerged from the spatial rift this time were obviously stronger than the previous wave of flame imps. Each of them had curved goat horns, and their lower bodies were covered with thick fur and goat hooves. They looked like goats that walked upright. Of course, these monsters were still very different from the harmless goats. From the rusty long scythes in their hands, one could see that they weren't easy to deal with. Insight. Centaur/Challenge Level 2, Demon/Serval Demon, Attributes, Strength 10, Agility 6, Constitution 10, Spirit 4, Skills, Cleave, Charge. These centaurs are the standard template of a Level 2 warrior. Their strength and constitution are high, but their agility is low. Bai Xiaowen set the information he obtained from Insight to exhibition mode, then took out the +3 Desert Eagle and started shooting. The remaining few people didn't know the real situation of these centaurs. They were intimidated by their ugly appearance and didn't dare to act rashly. Now that they got the information, their fear was reduced by half, and they attacked one after another. Bai Xiaowen's spirit spread out and noticed that the small spatial rift was still open, and the lava-like aura continued to overflow. At this time, in the underground shelters of Jinghai City, scenes of the battle between the hunters and the invading monsters were being broadcasted. These scenes were all captured by the city's surveillance cameras, psionic cameras, and other devices, and were being broadcasted to the ordinary citizens in the nearby shelters. This was also the usual practice. On one hand, it could reduce the panic of ordinary citizens, and on the other hand, it was also propaganda for the hunters who bravely killed the enemy. It was because of the existence of the hunters that human civilization could continue. The hunters were the backbone of civilized society. Therefore, most ordinary people could accept the transcendent status of the hunters. They wouldn't talk about the last century's popular words like "everyone is equal" every day. On the big screen, as long as there was a close-up shot of a powerful monster being killed, it would cause a burst of low cheers. These monsters are too abominable. They actually entered the city. In the underground shelter of Crimson Fire Square, Little June leaned against He Jiqing and whispered. He Jiqing said, "This spatial rift is too close to Jinghai Base City. It can't be helped. Fortunately, only some small spatial rifts appear in the city. It shouldn't be enough to support the crossing of overly powerful monsters." The scene changed from the Crimson Fire High School to the Crimson Fire Square. The battle in Crimson Fire Square was also what the ordinary people in the underground shelter cared about the most, because it was their home. "Brother! I see Big Brother," Xiaojun suddenly said excitedly. On the screen, Bai Xiaowen raised his hand steadily. With the combat specialty of Level 3 shooting, strongest student +1, the power of each shot was increased by 15%. Moreover, there were often critical hits and critical hits. Almost every few seconds, a horned demon would fall. Although Bai Xiaowen was only a temporary long-range physical attacker, his long-range damage was not inferior to the other archer, Chen Guowei. Needless to say, Bai Xiaowen was still diverting his attention to command a group of summoned creatures to block the path of a large number of centaur demons. Beside the summoned creatures, Zhang Yang's performance was also very eye-catching. His two-handed greatsword danced wildly like a windmill, forcing the horned demons to retreat one after another. The camera even gave Zhang Yang a close-up. The officials had always attached great importance to tank-type jobs that charged at the front. Crimson Fire Square, street battlefield. After all, the street was too wide, and a few skeleton sword shield-bearers could not completely block it. Soon, a few centaur demons broke through the blockade and charged toward Bai Xiaowen. Bai Xiaowen calmly fired shot after shot. He did not summon the skeleton sword shield-bearers to defend. Zhang Yang was in front. If he recalled the skeleton sword shield-bearers, the remaining centaur demons would surround him. Once he was surrounded, even if Zhang Yang's close combat specialty was level 4, it would be useless. He would only be surrounded and killed by the centaur demons. Bai Xiaowen had just killed a centaur when the rest of the centaur demons rushed within 10 meters. Ba ba, the centaur made a sound like a goat's bleating. It ground its hooves, and its speed suddenly doubled as it charged toward Bai Xiaowen. Notification: Centaur's charge skill activated. Bai Xiaowen was already prepared. He moved a few feet to the side and dodged the charge of 3 centaur demons. However, there were too many centaur demons. One of them still hit Bai Xiaowen, causing him to stagger and lose 10 HP. Bai Xiaowen was about to use the deterrence skill when a figure suddenly jumped over. 2 daggers were suddenly stabbed into the centaur's back. Vital hit was more than 1/3 of the centaur's total HP. It was an instant kill. Xianghui pulled out his dagger and blocked in front of Bai Xiaowen. The two of them worked together and killed the remaining 3 centaur demons. I thought you were slacking. Bai Xiaowen had already noticed that Xianghui was strolling around him. He did not rush up to kill like Zhang Yang. He joked, now, at least the entire city is watching our live broadcast. Don't you want to go up and show off? Xianghui glanced at Zhang Yang in front of him and snorted, I'm not like some people. They don't care about showing off just because they have a little exposure. A tank-type profession doesn't even know what to do. In this team, you alone are more useful than the 4 of us. Who else can I protect if not you? Bai Xiaowen smiled, there are only a few people who are willing to be the green leaves when there are red flowers in front. It's already good that Zhang Yang can rush to the front and kill the monsters. That's because your babies are holding the line. There's no risk in rushing to the front. Xianghui curled his lips and lit another cigarette tree branch. He blew out a mouthful of smoke. I'm in the same school as Zhang Yang. How can I not know what he's capable of? At least 2 of your skeleton babies are distracted protecting him and have no time to attack. Do you think I can't see that? I'm telling you clearly that if this continues, your limelight as the top scholar will be stolen. That's not necessarily true. Bai Xiaowen shook his head. Just when there were 4 or 5 centaur demons left, the spatial rift churned again, and flames fell like meteorites. This time, 3 elite centaur demons appeared. Each of them was muscular, and their arms were thicker than their thighs. And behind them, there was a centaur leader with flames burning behind its back and a big hammer in its hand. Its whole body exuded the smell of sulfur. Bai Xiaowen immediately used insight. He was surprised to find that the centaur leader only had an additional trample skill, but its challenge rating was as high as 10. Its strength was close to 40 points, and its total attributes were close to 100. Back off! Bai Xiaowen shouted. He didn't think that the level 2 awakened Zhang Yang could take a hit from the centaur leader's hammer. Wah wah wah, following a series of cryptic demon language, the centaur leader hit the ground with its hammer. A tyrannical wave of air spread, and everyone nearby was shaken to the point that they staggered and their speed dropped sharply. Zhang Yang and the skeleton swordsman all fell into a state of reduced speed. Fortunately, the centaur leader's target wasn't them. With a collision skill, it sent Zhang Yang flying and rushed toward Bai Xiaowen. Chapter 133. The Horned Demon Leader had a challenge rating of 10 and had reached level 4. It was only 1 level lower than Zhu Ji, the doctor from the Three Kingdoms dimension world. Moreover, looking at the Horned Demon Leader's bulging muscles and ferocious big hammer, it was a warrior-type boss that was good at one-on-one fights. It was much more ferocious than the support-type boss, Zhu Ji. Bai Xiaowen opened his hand and used the talisman switch skill. He quickly switched to the yellow charm of confusion and threw it at the Horned Demon Leader. The Horned Demon Leader had no space to dodge during the collision and was hit directly. Notification: the enemy's strength is 2,078, 1. The charm of confusion has failed and will cause a stun effect instead. The enemy's mental strength is 926. The Horned Demon Leader will be stunned for 3.5 seconds. The moment the talisman was used, the Alpha Wolf Wrath Claw howled into the sky. The howl skill was activated. All allies within a 100-meter radius had their attack power and attack speed increased by 20%. Xianghui was prepared to run away, but he stopped when he saw Bai Xiaowen had the Horned Demon Leader under crowd control. After hesitating for half a second, Xianghui rushed over and took the opportunity when the Horned Demon Leader could not dodge or block. He waved his dagger and left 2 wounds on the horned demon leader's back and throat. After inflicting 2 layers of bleeding effect, he continued to run. Unlike Xiang Hui, Li Shi and Bai Xiaowen already had a tacit understanding of each other. The moment Bai Xiaowen used the talisman skill, they used special items to remove the speed reduction effect on themselves and turned around to pounce on the horned demon leader. A layer of fire visible to the naked eye enveloped Li Shi's body. The skill of the +3 gold accessory, Devilish Fire Jade Pendant, was activated. Each melee attack had an additional 3 fire damage. At that moment, Li Shi's 2 passive bonuses were fully stacked. His attack speed was shockingly fast. Chi chi chi, bloody holes appeared on the back of the centaur leader. Within the 3.5 seconds, Li Shi stabbed 7 times, including combo slash, and 3 of them were critical hits. The +4 effect of refined stab was activated simultaneously, and 3 stacks of bleed effect were added. After waking up from his dizzy state, the leader of the horned demons felt a piercing pain in his back. He could not help but roar into the sky. In the previous 3.5 seconds, its HP had been reduced by 1/4, and it had also received 5 stacks of bleeding. However, even after being attacked by Li Shi, the centaur leader's target did not change. It was still Bai Xiaowen. He tried to run with his stubby legs, but his speed was reduced by more than 30% as if he was shackled. Xiang Hui shouted from afar, "Run! My speed reduction ointment can only last for less than 10 seconds on this boss. It's time now." As soon as Xiang Hui finished speaking, the speed reduction effect on the centaur leader had disappeared, and it charged toward Bai Xiaowen again. Boom! A hammer came crashing down with a strong gust of wind. Bai Xiaowen had level 4 advanced combat, strongest student +1, so he did not panic. He looked at the direction of the hammer and rolled on the ground to avoid it. With a clang, the hammer landed on the asphalt road, leaving a deep dent and spiderweb-like cracks. Dust flew everywhere. The centaur leader's dual-wielding hammer was obviously very strong. He flipped his thick wrist and used the recoil force from the ground to raise his hammer by a few inches. He then swept it across the ground. If this attack landed, Bai Xiaowen's HP would be reduced by more than half even if he had 17 points of vitality. However, at this moment, a large gray shadow pounced on him. A pair of large claws reached out and pinned the centaur leader to the ground. Bai Xiaowen's summoned creatures had gotten rid of the speed reduction effect. The first to pounce on him was the Wrath Claw, which used its ultimate skill to suppress the centaur leader. The Wrath Claw's ultimate skill could only last for 2.5 seconds because of the huge difference in strength between it and the centaur leader. Fortunately, it pounced on him from the back and had an advantage in terms of judgment. Otherwise, it would be a problem if the suppression skill could be successfully judged. Li Shi's 35-second Devil Fire Dance status was still there. Every strike was accompanied by flames as he attacked with all his might. Bai Xiaowen managed to get up and fired without saying a word. Xiang Hui, who had already escaped far away, gritted his teeth and ran over again. He saw Bai Xiaowen's 4 skeleton swordsmen rushing back to help. As for the 3 elite centaur demons and the remaining normal centaur demons, Bai Xiaowen could not care about them. He could only leave them to Zhanyang and Qingguowei. Once the 2.5 seconds of suppression was up, the centaur leader immediately flipped the Wolf King over. Its eyes vaguely showed a trace of dead white. It roared and swung its hammer at Li Shi. A skeleton swordsman blocked in front of Li Shi. With Bai Xiaowen's level 3 shield specialty, title +1, the iron shield was raised at a slanted angle with the hammer. With a creaking sound, the skeleton swordsman received a terrifying 30 points of recoil damage and took half a step back. However, it did not lose its melee defense position. If it did not have the level 3 shield specialty and forcefully raised the shield, the recoil damage would probably be doubled. The skeleton swordsman would also be sent flying. The centaur leader continued to swing its hammer, and the second skeleton swordsman blocked it again. By the time the other skeleton sword shielders had been knocked back, the first skeleton sword shielder was ready to attack again. The centaur leader exploded in anger. It swung its hammer with a terrifying death whirlwind and activated its combat skill, Cleave. The skeleton swordsman that bore the brunt of the attack was smashed into a pile of bones. No matter how good the shield's specialty was, it could not ignore the absolute difference in attributes. Within the range of Cleave, the other 3 skeleton swordsmen and the shadow assassin lost a lot of HP. Fortunately, Li Shi was attacking from the back and was not affected by the attack. Xiang Hui also rushed over to join the attack. At this time, the centaur leader's HP was less than 1/4. Bai Xiaowen's last shot hit the centaur leader's forehead and took away its last bit of HP. With a thud, the centaur leader's heavy body fell to the ground. A rather valuable golden treasure chest appeared. The outcome of this battle was tragic. Only one of the 4 skeleton swordsmen was left. The Wolf King Wrathclaw and the Shadow Assassin also lost almost half of their HP. However, the battle on the other side was not over. In just a few seconds, a few elite centaurs and normal centaurs beat Zhang Yang until he covered his head and fled. One had to know that this was under the cover of Chen Guo's arrows. After Bai Xiaowen and the others joined the battle, they killed the remaining centaurs. A few elite centaurs dropped a silver treasure chest, while the normal centaurs dropped 2 normal treasure chests. Phew, it's finally over. Zhang Yang's face was pale. He jumped down from a roadside billboard with lingering fear. He only delayed for a dozen seconds before his HP was reduced by more than half. He was so scared that he quickly used an item to speed up his escape. It should be safe now, right? Li Shi asked softly. Although the centaur leader was killed, the ominous feeling in Bai Xiaowen's heart did not dissipate. Instead, it grew stronger. He raised his head and stared at the small spatial rift in midair. He noticed that the spatial rift was shrinking. It might be over soon, but don't let your guard down. Bai Xiaowen would rather believe that this ominous feeling was just an illusion. Chapter 134. This bloodshot eyeball was the size of a lantern. It could be inferred that its owner's body must be very large. The moment the bloodshot eyeball looked through the spatial rift, several people in the field felt a bone-chilling chill in their hearts. They were like insects being stared at by a frog, their bodies stiff. This was a huge suppression caused by the difference in rank. Bai Xiaowen's left eye suddenly twitched, as if there was an invisible spiritual energy surging through his body. The stiff feeling of being stared at by a natural enemy disappeared, and his body also regained its freedom. After the spatial rift, the bloodshot eyeball disappeared. The next second, a huge long arm with chapped skin and billowing lava surging between the cracks squeezed the spatial rift inch by inch and stretched out. What kind of monster is this? Bai Xiaowen was surprised. The owner of this flaming arm was probably far stronger than the centaur leader. They were not on the same level at all. The flaming arm stretched out inch by inch, and its target was Bai Xiaowen. Bai Xiaowen turned and ran. In the underground shelter, before everyone had time to cheer for the fall of the centaur leader, they saw the huge flaming arm. For a moment, countless people exclaimed. Xiao Jun cried out. She also saw the flaming arm chasing after Bai Xiaowen, and her face turned pale. Headquarters. A large psionic fluctuation has occurred in the Crimson Fire Square in the Crimson Fire District. The preliminary assessment is, above level 20. A transcendent being above level 20? How is that possible? Only one arm crossed the boundary. Its strength is only about 1/10 of the body's strength, and it will consume a lot of psionic particles to maintain the spatial rift, causing the spatial rift to close early, so it will only last for a short time. When the abnormal fluctuation was detected, the strong ones had already rushed over. There are still several low-level hunters there, right? I hope they can survive. Boom! The long arm that was burning with flames slammed onto the ground. Just the strong wind pressure alone was enough to shatter all the windows in the nearby streets. Li Shi, Xiang Hui, and the others were thrown to the ground by the powerful shock force. The flaming arm was obviously not interested in Li Shi and the others. It went straight for Bai Xiaowen. Bai Xiaowen had run more than 10 meters ahead of time and left the center of the tremor, so he did not fall into the knockdown state. However, the shockwave that followed caused Bai Xiaowen to be severely slowed down. Don't panic. After being slowed down, Bai Xiaowen did not continue running. Instead, he turned around and took out a talisman. With a flash of light, he chose to use it. Prompt information: frowny face, you've used an A-rank item, Deceit Talisman. The target enemy will view you and your team as allies and will not initiate an attack. Lasts for a maximum of 120 seconds. Detected that the level of the target's arm is too high, the duration of the Deceit Talisman has been halved. Detected that the target arm's level is too high, the duration of the Deceit Talisman has been halved again. The target's spirit attribute cannot be detected. The duration of the Deceit Talisman will no longer be reduced. Bai Xiaowen activated his insight on the flaming arm. He could only obtain a simple name, Balrog Arm. All other information was unknown. However, the Balrog Arm had a red border. Now, it had a green border, which meant that it would not attack for the time being. The Balrog Arm was somewhat hesitant. It stretched forward for a while, then swayed left and right. It was as if there was a drunk excavator driver sitting inside. Bai Xiaowen continued running. He was now 100% sure that this terrifying arm was coming for him. As for the reason, it was unlikely to be the Black Soul Stone. Then, the mutated left eye was very likely. If he was caught, who knew if he would be eaten alive or dissected? In the distance, a military helicopter flew over and hovered in the air near the Balrog Arm. The hatch opened, and 3 powerhouses with powerful auras leaped out and landed on the rooftops of nearby buildings. Bai Xiaowen let out a long sigh of relief. Reinforcements had finally arrived. A clear voice rang out, "Old Zhong, Sky Monkey, to be able to encounter such a good thing on a vacation, this king's luck must be maxed out. You have nothing to say, right?" Following this voice, a female powerhouse with a hot figure tossed out a green chain. It coiled around the Balrog Arm a few times. The mechanism at the end of the chain suddenly popped out and tightened. The Balrog Arm seemed to feel threatened and quickly retracted. The female powerhouse smiled, "Since you dared to come here, you should at least leave some interest." "Old Zhong." Behind her, a burly man who looked like an iron tower stretched out his arm and grabbed the green chain. Then, he suddenly pulled it back. The building he was standing on seemed to shake, showing the strength of this pull. The green chain was pulled taut, and the Balrog Arm was also pulled over. The female powerhouse raised her hand and shot out a cloud of dense black mist, which wrapped around the Balrog Arm's elbow. The Balrog Arm's elbow loosened at a visible speed. Its defensive strength was weakened by an unknown number of layers. On the roof of another building, a tall and thin powerhouse leaped out and went straight for the weakened elbow of the Balrog Arm. In midair, he pulled out 2 sharp blades and made 3 rounds, cutting deep wounds on the Balrog Arm. One could almost see the fiery red bones inside. The strong man, Old Zhong, pulled out a dark golden axe, bent his legs slightly, and leaped. The strength of this leap was so great that even the building below could not withstand it. It was forcefully shaken and lowered by 1 floor. Smoke and dust filled the air. Chapter 135. They're really powerful. Bai Xiaowen was shocked. These 3 powerhouses must be the legendary evolvers who had undergone the second job transition. They might even be stronger. Bai Xiaowen carefully put away the dozen drops of Balrog's bone marrow. Thinking of the trash that the 3 powerhouses did not want and the unknown mysterious items that were worth 1,000 psionic energy points, Bai Xiaowen sighed. When could he reach their level? Inside the armed helicopter. TSK, we're so lucky to have met a silly high-level demon who dared to ignore the plane's suppression and extended an arm for us to chop off. The female powerhouse who called herself Your Majesty had a head of purple curly hair. She leaned against the back of the seat and said happily, "With this arm, Your Majesty's fire specialization can finally reach the master level." Ha ha ha. The towering man, old Zhong, waited for her to finish laughing before saying, "Some Balrog's bone marrow was spilled down there." "Forget it. There's a handsome guy down there. Let's give it to him." The purple-haired female powerhouse laughed. "We'll appear, chop off the Balrog's arm, and leave. How cool would that be? We'll go down and pick up a few drops of Balrog's bone marrow. Besides, if it wasn't for that handsome guy, we probably wouldn't be so lucky to get a Balrog's arm." The tall and thin man, Sky Monkey, suddenly said, "Balrogs are high-level demons. They're different from unintelligent inferior demons and servants. It's impossible for them to not know the danger of crossing realms under the plane's suppression. Why did he extend his arm to chase after that kid? Is there something strange about him? Should we go back and ask?" Old Zhong asked. The purple-haired female powerhouse waved her hand and said with a smile, "We don't need to ask. How can the smart guys at the Awakened Association not investigate such a bizarre thing? An official investigation is more legitimate than our private investigation. Well, I'll tell old Xiang at the Jinghai branch later. He won't dare to fool me." Bai Xiaowen, who had escaped the disaster, slowly walked back. The original street was already in a mess. The surrounding glass was broken into countless pieces, and at the intersection of the asphalt road, there was still a huge palm print left. "Are you all okay?" Bai Xiaowen looked at the other four. "I'm fine." They all got up, still feeling a little scared. That monster is truly terrifying. Fortunately, an expert appeared and cut off one of its arms to teach it a lesson. Qingwei said. Li Shi's face recovered from its paleness. He patted his chest and heaved a sigh of relief. "All right, let's open a bunch of treasure chests to calm ourselves down," Bai Xiaowen said with a smile. There were a total of 4 treasure chests. Other than the gold treasure chest, there was 1 silver treasure chest and 2 normal treasure chests. If a few awakened ones were to work together to kill a monster, if a treasure chest were to appear, how would they distribute it? The psionic era had already passed 1996, and there was already a clear set of rules for the distribution of spoils of war. It was mainly based on the contribution of kills. Kill contribution not only referred to the amount of damage dealt to the boss, but also included many other factors such as attracting the boss's attack, controlling it for a long time, providing effective healing support to teammates, and so on. It was a contribution ratio calculated by the rules of the spirit world, and it was very authoritative. If one of the awakened ones' kill contribution exceeded 75%, then they would have absolute distribution rights. They could take all the spoils of war in the treasure chest for themselves, and they could also distribute them to any member with the right to pick them up at will. Of course, this kind of situation tested the awakened one's EQ. How would the awakened ones with absolute distribution rights distribute the items? Of course, it was a relatively stupid way to do it. Once their reputation was tarnished, no one would be willing to team up with them. After all, this was an era where information was extremely developed. If no one's kill contribution reached more than 75%, then it would depend on the demand. When an item was distributed among the team, the rules of the spirit world would first give an estimate. If no one needed it, usually impossible, then they would directly choose to recycle it. Everyone would receive the psionic points after recycling according to the kill contribution ratio. The psionic points recovered would be equal to the estimated price. If someone needed it, then the awakened would buy the item according to the estimated price. The psionic points paid would also be distributed by everyone, including the buyer, according to the kill contribution ratio. It should be noted that the estimated price given by the rules of the spirit world was generally conservative, so as long as the awakened ones really needed it, they would make a profit by buying the item. If there were more than 2 people who needed it, this was the most common situation, then they would enter the auction mode, and the highest bidder would get it. The psionic points paid in the end would also be distributed by everyone according to the kill contribution ratio. This method of distributing the spoils of war by selling them at an estimated price and distributing the psionic points proportionally was not perfect. There were always loopholes that could be exploited, but it was already a relatively fair distribution method. Sometimes, The hunters who contributed more than 75% of the kills and had the absolute right to distribute the loot would also go through this appraisal process in order to gain a good reputation and for the sake of team unity. Bai Xiaowen's kill contribution accounted for 80% of the gold treasure chest dropped by the centaur boss, Li Shi accounted for 80%, and Xiang Hui accounted for 35%. Xiang Hui waved his hand. Well, I don't have the face to share this treasure chest. With Xiang Hui's equipment and level, if he had been attacking the whole time, his contribution would not have been lower than Li Shi's. However, he and Bai Xiaowen had never cooperated before. After the boss's speed was reduced, they quickly ran away, delaying their damage output. For a DPS player, this was a very shameful thing. Xiang Hui himself felt ashamed. Bai Xiaowen could understand Xiang Hui's approach. You probably want to kite the boss and wait for reinforcements, right? There's nothing wrong with your approach, it's just that your tactical thinking is different. Well, I won't use absolute distribution rights for this treasure chest. Let's sell it at an estimated price. After opening the treasure chest, Bai Xiaowen received 3,137 psionic points. At the same time, he received a notification that the team's combat score for killing the centaur boss was A, and he had 3 chances to draw cards. Bai Xiaowen was a little surprised to receive an A rating. He had thought that the combat score would fall to B after the 3 of them worked together to kill the centaur boss. Li Shi volunteered to draw cards. Zhang Yang and Chen Guowei also came over to watch. After all, gold treasure chests were not common. Special item, low-level Chaos Monster Core. Estimated value, 900 psionic points. Hero-level equipment, Bone Gauntlet, bound after pickup. Estimated value, 5,000 psionic points. 2-star skill book, Brutal Charge. Estimated value, 1,000 psionic points. A skill book and a gold equipment. This is really lucky, Chen Guowei muttered. It could be seen that the valuation given by the rules of the spiritual realm was indeed conservative, especially when it came to the valuation of the skill book. It did not take into account the rarity of the skill book. A 2-star skill book with 1,000 psionic points was too cheap. There was also the hero-level gold equipment, Bone Gauntlet. It increased strength by 2 points and dexterity by 3 points. It was an extremely precious attribute for any melee DPS. The price of 5,000 psionic points was also a little conservative. If it was changed to equipment binding, it could be sold at an auction. This gold equipment could be sold at a high price of at least 20,000 psionic points. Of course, there was a big difference between equipment binding after pickup and equipment binding. Even though Bai Xiaowen did not use absolute distribution rights, Xiang Hui still did not ask for it. Li Shi happily bought the Bone Gauntlet and the Brutal Charge skill book. He generously gave them a total of 10,000 psionic points. Out of the 10,000 psionic points, Bai Xiaowen got 7,844 psionic points, Xiang Hui got 635 psionic points, and the remaining 1,521 psionic points belonged to Li Shi. Seeing Li Shi take out 10,000 psionic points without blinking, Bai Xiaowen thought to himself, is there a strong first generation, second generation? That is awesome. As for the special item low-level Chaos Monster Core, after asking Xiang Hui, Bai Xiaowen bought it at a premium of 1,000 psionic points. After the distribution of the gold treasure chests was completed, the silver treasure chests were next. In comparison, everyone did not have high expectations for this silver treasure chest because it only had a D-level combat evaluation. All 5 of them had contributed to the kill. It should be noted that Zhang Yang also contributed. After all, he had delayed for a short period of time. The rules of the spiritual realm were very fair. The contribution ratio given was relatively small, but it was not 0. The silver treasure chest was also given to the lucky Li Shi to draw. Unfortunately, he did not get anything good this time. He only got an army soldier's nameplate, which was estimated to be worth 100 psionic points. However, it was better than nothing. There are 2 treasure chests left. Let me try. Bai Xiaowen felt an unbearable itch in his heart. He did not dare to spoil the gold card, nor did he dare to touch the silver card that was obviously watered down. As for the remaining 2 normal treasure chests with a level E combat rating, he did not feel much pressure. Whoosh! Chapter 136. Scorching Scythe, bound after pickup, grade, elite, blue, equipment position, two-handed, equipment requirements, strength 12, agility 10, attribute, attack power 6 to 15, skill, scorching. Every successful hit on the enemy will deal additional fire damage equal to your own level *1. Durability description. This heavy murder weapon was forged in the sulfuric smell of hell. This crimson scythe was eye-catching because of its high attack power. As an elite-grade weapon, it actually had the basic attack power of the Desert Eagle, which was quite rare. Moreover, it also had a pretty good scorch skill, which made it a small piece of equipment. Of course, Scorching Scythe was a two-handed polearm weapon. Its basic attack power was 1 level higher than that of a one-handed weapon. Moreover, two-handed polearm weapons had the slowest basic attack speed. Most people would not practice polearms, so it was very difficult to use the full power of this scythe. Unfortunately, this scythe was dropped by an ordinary centaur. Only Bai Xiaowen and Chen Guowei had contributed to the killing of this ordinary centaur. Neither of them needed this equipment. Zhang Yang was very depressed. Even if he had 1% of the killing contribution, he would have the right to pick up the equipment. Unfortunately, he did not. For this scythe, even if he had to practice polearms, it would have been worth it. In the end, Bai Xiaowen bought this equipment at a price of 1,500 points. He planned to be extravagant and keep it as auxiliary equipment when he enhanced his equipment. He had nearly 2/3 of the killing contribution. In fact, he had only spent 500 points of psionic points. It was a good deal. Notification: your combat skill, Summon Wrath Claw, has reached the proficiency level. It can be upgraded to level 2. Do you want to upgrade it? Bai Xiaowen spent 1,000 psionic points to upgrade it. After the battle with the spatial rift monsters, Bai Xiaowen's total psionic points had reached more than 38,000 psionic points. The cost of upgrading the skill was a small matter. Under the effect of the strongest scholar title, the Summon Wrath Claw skill actually had a LV3 effect. The cooldown of all the Wrath Claw skills was reduced by 10%. What Bai Xiaowen was looking forward to was that when the skill was leveled up, it would be able to reach LV4. It should be a significant enhancement. The Return of the Dead skill that came with the Dark Soul Stone could not be leveled up. However, the Dark Soul Stone itself had a growth level and an enhancement map. After this battle, the growth level had increased to 4 points and it could be upgraded again. Along with the disappearance of the small space cracks in the Crimson Fire Plaza, the space cracks in the other districts of the Tranquil Sea City also disappeared. According to the official test results, the waves of the spiritual particles had returned to normal. For the time being, there would not be any more space cracks. The spatial cracks outside the city also closed at the same time. Without any reinforcements, the monsters that swarmed over from the unknown dimension were quickly defeated by the Awakened. The war ended as quickly as it came. After half a day, ordinary citizens came out of the underground shelter. The officials organized manpower to repair the damaged streets and buildings and deal with the aftermath. In the end, the official assessment rated the intensity of the monster invasion as level C, which was the level of mild threat to the city. The only special thing was that a higher demon had forcibly extended an arm in spite of the suppression of the dimension. But in the end, the arm was cut off by a human powerhouse. It was a daunting experience. Although the incident had passed, those who were observant would not miss the strangeness of it. That was the reason why the higher demon had desperately crossed over. Super God's Building, Bai Xiaowen's home. Bai Xiaowen took a shower and walked out of the bathroom with a large bath towel wrapped around his waist. "Brother, are you hurt?" Xiaojun poked her small head out of the bedroom door. "Don't worry. As long as the Awakened doesn't die, even if they are injured, after leaving the combat state, they will quickly heal under the effect of the spiritual particles." Bai Xiaowen smiled and waved his hand, giving a reassuring smile. Phew, that's good. Brother, I also have to work hard and strive to be an awakened like you in high school. Xiaojun clenched her fists as if she had made a great decision. Bai Xiaowen nodded with relief. Li Shi came over and whispered, Xiaowen, my combat experience has met the requirements for leveling up. I received a prompt from the spiritual realm to enter the spiritual realm to upgrade my profession level. That's pretty fast. Bai Xiaowen was a little surprised. He glanced at his combat experience bar. It was only about 75%. There was still a long way to go before he could level up. Li Shi said, I'm only level 1. Leveling up to level 2 is already very fast. In the Three Kingdoms plane, after I completed my profession change, you took me to do an S-level side mission. After completing that mission, my combat experience bar exceeded 80%. This time, I participated in killing a level 4 boss and a few elites. My combat experience bar was full. S-level side missions and killing bosses above their level were very rewarding in terms of combat experience. Okay, now that the college entrance examination is over, all that's left is to fill in the application form. We'll make some preparations in the next few days and buy a ticket to the spiritual realm. Once we've chosen a school, we'll have a long summer break. It'll be enough time for us to go to the spiritual realm, Bai Xiaowen said. Now that Li Shi was an awakened, he didn't need to create a temporary team. He could use the ticket to the spiritual realm to form a team. However, he would have to pay a sum of psionic points according to his level. Move twice, move twice, move thrice, Bai Xiaowen's phone rang. He picked it up and saw that it was Sister Yan. Sister Yan, what's the matter? Xiaowen, you're very lucky. Sister Yan's voice was a little excited. You killed a powerful boss in the city defense battle. I've edited the video and posted it on the virtual community. The top scholar of the college entrance examination killed a boss and protected the city. TSK, the clicks and comments are off the charts. Hearing this, Bai Xiaowen silently checked. His world-renowned level had risen to 766 points of C-class, and it was still rising. At this rate, he might really be able to reach level A or level B. That's a good thing. I thought that this sudden incident would affect the popularity of the top scholar of the college entrance examination. Bai Xiaowen smiled. If you didn't perform well in this sudden incident, of course you'd be affected. People would only pay attention to the city defense battle and ignore the top scholar of the college entrance examination. However, it's different now. You killed a boss that invaded the city. The two hot topics are connected and have a multiplier effect. Moreover, the officials seem to want to publicize this to prove the unprecedented success of Huaxia's college entrance examination system. In short, you're lucky. You're going to be famous. Sister Yan smiled. Her voice was soft and sweet. Are you at home now? I'll come over right away. You have to treat me to a meal. After agreeing, Bai Xiaowen hung up the phone. He glanced at the virtual community and saw that there were many messages. Replying to these messages was too time-consuming. Bai Xiaowen could only leave it to his assistant. He asked his assistant to choose the virtual messages that were worth replying to and show them to him. After a few minutes, someone knocked on the door. Sister Yan, you're here so quickly? Bai Xiaowen was surprised and opened the door. There were two men with caps standing at the door. They looked a little serious. Hello, are you Bai Xiaowen? I am. Bai Xiaowen nodded. Chapter 137. Relax, relax. Don't look so serious. Bai Xiaowen waved his hand. Come in and have a seat. The two men had never seen Bai Xiaowen so calm. Bai Xiaowen, you should come with us. Don't waste our time, one of the men said bluntly. What? Did I kill someone or break the law? The smile on Bai Xiaowen's face disappeared and became much colder. The two of you aren't even awakened ones. Do you think you're worthy just because you're wearing the skin of the Awakened Association? Where were you hiding when the monsters invaded? The shelter or the command center? The two men's expressions changed slightly. Get out of here. Don't be an eyesore. Bai Xiaowen said angrily. The two men shrunk their necks and left. After sending the men away, Bai Xiaowen closed the door and said to Li Shui, who was at a loss, call the president immediately. Li Shui quickly dialed the number. Xiao Jun asked worriedly, brother, what happened? Bai Xiaowen shook his head and said, Xiao Jun, don't worry. It's nothing serious. I asked Shi to call the president just in case. Bai Xiaowen also picked up his phone and sent a message to Sister Yan. Not long after, the door was banged on again. Who is it? Bai Xiaowen said angrily. Someone to check the water meter. Get out. Bai Xiaowen gave Cat Eyes the middle finger. Get out of here. If you piss me off, I'll slap you. There was silence outside the door for a while. Then, another voice came. Bai Xiaowen, I'm Chu Yuan Bin, a level 7 special agent of the Awakened Association. We suspect that you have a tendency to seriously endanger the safety of society. Please open the door and cooperate with our investigation. Otherwise, we will force our way in. If you and your family suffer any loss of life or property, you will be responsible for the consequences. Bai Xiaowen opened the door. Standing between the two men with big caps at the door was a middle-aged man with shiny hair and mousse. He was obviously Chu Yuan Bin, who claimed to be a level 7 special agent. Seeing Bai Xiaowen open the door, Chu Yuan Bin smiled and nodded in satisfaction. Let's go. As long as we can confirm that you're not a serious threat to society, we'll clear your name. Bai Xiaowen turned to look at Li Shui. Li Shui nodded gently. Okay, let's go. Is this how the Awakened Association of Jinghai City treats the meritorious awakened? Bai Xiaowen clapped his hands and said, I remember that I have dozens of interviews with the media. I'll have to talk about it later. Chu Yuan Bin's expression changed slightly, but he didn't say anything. Bai Xiaowen kept the spiritual camera on and turned it into stealth mode. They went downstairs and got into the Awakened Association's car. Perhaps Bai Xiaowen's words had an effect, but Chu Yuan Bin and his two men with big caps were slightly more restrained. They didn't take any measures against Bai Xiaowen. The car drove into the Jinghai City Awakened Association. After Bai Xiaowen got out of the car, he was taken directly to the door of the interrogation room. The female inspector said seriously, Bai Xiaowen, please hand over your mobile phone, spiritual camera, and all electronic devices. At this point, Bai Xiaowen calmed down. Haha. What's the matter? Are we going to enter the interrogation process now? The female inspector was infuriated by Bai Xiaowen's words, but when she saw Bai Xiaowen's handsome face, she softened her stance for some reason. I'm just following the rules. You have to hand over your electronic equipment when you enter the interrogation room, bang. Bai Xiaowen slammed his palm on the table. With a crash, the table collapsed. The female inspector's face turned pale. The two men behind her hurriedly took a few steps back. At the same time, they took out their pistols and pointed them at Bai Xiaowen, as though they were facing a formidable enemy. Bai Xiaowen leaned close to the female inspector's pale face and curled his lips. You have a pretty face. Don't put on a poker face. You'll age quickly. Turning around, Bai Xiaowen walked over to the two men and snatched their guns. You work in the Awakened Association. Don't you know about the psionic power field? Using standard pistols against an awakened? Are you out of your mind? He exerted strength in his hands and the two pistols were crushed into scrap metal. They fell to the ground with two clangs. You, the two of you, and Chu Yuan Bin are not the main culprits. Bai Xiaowen's tone turned cold. First, you sent a few brats to torment me. Then, you appeared in person to express your condolences. Finally, you said it was a misunderstanding. I won't fall for that. Who wants to deal with me? Hurry up and come out. The female inspector's legs turned to jelly. Looking at Bai Xiaowen straight back, she didn't know why but she couldn't close her legs. What's going on here? A voice came from the corner of the corridor. Bai Xiaowen turned around and saw a middle-aged man with a rather dignified aura walking in the direction of the interrogation room. President Xiang, Bai Xiaowen refused to hand over the communication device. He even attacked the police. The two men looked as though they had seen their savior. Bai Xiaowen first used insight on the president and found that he could only see his name, Xiang Tian. The rest of his information was filled with question marks. It seemed that Xiang Tian's level was very high. He was beyond the scope of Bai Xiaowen's insight ability. However, Bai Xiaowen didn't panic at all. He sized up Xiang Tian. "Are you the one who gave the order to interrogate me?" Xiang Tian was slightly startled. He then waved his hand and said, "Don't misunderstand, bringing me here for a direct interrogation and treating me like a criminal. This is no longer a misunderstanding," Bai Xiaowen said calmly. Then, he cancelled the invisible function of the psionic camera and revealed it. "By the way, this is a live broadcast. President Xiang, you'd better think twice before doing this." Xiang Tian glared at the two men and waved his hand to dismiss the three ordinary people. "Student Bai Xiaowen, I know about your deeds and admire you very much," Xiang Tian said. "I invited you here today mainly to investigate the abnormal incident of the devil's arm appearing in the small space rift. I just want to ask a few questions. I definitely don't intend to interrogate you. So, I can keep my phone? Turn on the psionic camera?" Xiang Tian didn't hesitate. "Of course you can." Bai Xiaowen was a little confused. "So straightforward. Weren't you the one who sent Chu Yuanbin to forcibly bring me here?" "Chu Yuanbin?" Xiang Tian was startled for a moment before he reacted. His expression was a little strange. Then, he returned to normal. It was Vice President Fu Yiping who gave the order. Maybe the people below understood it a little differently, causing problems with their working attitude. "Student Bai Xiaowen, don't worry. You're the hero of our Jinghai city. The Awakened Association is about to commend you. How could they make things difficult for you?" Bai Xiaowen frowned slightly and repeated Fu Yiping's name. "Okay, let's have a good talk about the abnormal incident of the Devil's Arm invasion. You can continue to turn on the psionic camera." Xiang Hui spoke very carefully to prevent Bai Xiaowen from misunderstanding again. "Didn't the surveillance cameras of the Crimson Fire Square see it?" Bai Xiaowen shook his head and said, "I have nothing to say. It's like this. At that time, the Devil's Arm forcibly passed through the space rift and was chasing you. This situation is relatively rare. We're more worried if you have any special items on you that will attract the Devil's great interest. If there is such an item, it will be a disaster for you and the entire city," Xiang Tian said. "How would I know why the devil is chasing me? Maybe the centaur leader I killed was its distant relative." Bai Xiaowen guessed irresponsibly. Chapter 138. I refuse. This is an invasion of the Awakened's right to privacy. Bai Xiaowen refused. The first article of the Awakened Convention states all the personal rights of the Awakened, including the right to privacy from others. Without evidence, the Awakened Association has no right to search. The Awakened Association of Jinghai City was a loose organization established by the large and small guilds of Jinghai City under the official organization. It did not belong to any of the public security organs. In terms of political attributes, in the eyes of ordinary citizens, it was similar to the political harmony of another time and space. The head of the association was basically the president of the large and small guilds of Jinghai City. Finally, the commander of the military division of Jinghai City was also the president. Of course, the status and function of the Awakened Association were much more important than the political harmony of another time and space. Once there was a monster invasion, the Awakened Association would set up a temporary command center and mobilize the power of the military and civilian Awakened guilds to eliminate the monsters and save the base city. Disputes between guilds would also be decided by the association. If the Awakened violated the law, the association would urge the guilds to deal with it. If there was a serious crime that endangered public safety, the association would directly punish it after a decision was made. But no matter what, the Awakened Association was only a loose alliance and not a powerful centralized department. It needed to work under the framework of the Awakened Convention to be recognized by the large and small guilds and the Awakened. Therefore, the association itself could not do anything that violated the Awakened Convention. This was also where Bai Xiaowen's confidence came from. You are indeed the top scholar of the college entrance examination. Seeing that Bai Xiaowen was not scared, Xiang Tian nodded and smiled. Anyway, this was not my idea. Let old Fu deal with it. You sit for a while, I will go to a meeting. Hey, you are leaving? Seeing Xiang Tian turn around and leave, Bai Xiaowen was a little surprised. Actually, Bai Xiaowen was not that sensitive to the so-called inspection. The high-level demon was a creature that surpassed the level of a level 10 awakened. The only thing that could attract the demon's interest was the mysterious eyeball in Bai Xiaowen's left eye. The mysterious eyeball's priority was so high that even the spiritual world's rules could not distinguish it, causing chaos. Bai Xiaowen did not think that there was any psionic device on Earth that would be able to detect it. As for the Black Soul Stone, it was a piece of equipment exclusive to the hero class. Not to mention that soul binding could not steal it, even if it was stolen, no one else would be able to use it. This was the meaning of the word exclusive. It was good to keep it a secret, but even if it was exposed, it wouldn't have much of an impact. As for the other psionic items, including the A-grade items in the storage space, they were nothing in the eyes of high-level awakened ones or even higher-level evolvers. Moreover, Bai Xiaowen had to prove his innocence. If the results of the investigation were not clear, the news that Bai Xiaowen had treasures coveted by high-level demons would be confirmed in the minds of many powerhouses. It was not a good thing to be remembered by a group of experts, like the three who had cut off the Balrog's arm. Bai Xiaowen was still very weak and needed to develop steadily. Bai Xiaowen's initial refusal to be inspected was more of an act than anything else. He was just trying to bargain and get some terms in exchange. He didn't expect Xiang Tian to not play by the rules and just leave. However, Xiang Tian's last words reminded Bai Xiaowen. Now it seems that Xiang Tian is not the mastermind. The one who wants to use this as a pretext to make a fuss is probably that old Fu he mentioned. It's a pity that the old man with the surname Fu miscalculated. Now that I have a golden body, I'm not afraid of you. Before I clear my name, even if you let me go, I won't leave. Two men with big caps poked their heads out of the courtyard outside the corridor. Bai Xiaowen moved a chair and sat in front of the door of the interrogation room. He ignored them and directly entered a state of meditation to practice his meditation. On the other side, in a small conference room of the Awakened Association in Jinghai City, a group of guild bosses were arguing. Bai Xiaowen is a hero who killed a leader who invaded the city center. Without him, the citizens of the Crimson Fire Square shelter would have faced a huge crisis. Is this how you treat the hero of the base city? Li Beihai slammed the table and roared. Opposite Li Beihai, a thin middle-aged man with a mustache stood up and argued with Li Beihai, hero or scourge. We don't even know if he was the one who caused this attack. How many years has it been since Jinghai City encountered such a situation? The space rift opened directly to the city center. Bull *****, Wu Chonglian, you're obviously jealous that our super gods have a hero class, so you're trying to suppress him. Pfft, you've picked up a piece of trash as a treasure. What's the use of a summoning hero class? It's far worse than the elites of our guild of excellence, that's enough, we're all guild leaders. Don't be a shrew, said a white-haired old man in a military uniform sitting on the main seat in the north. Old Fu, you're the one who brought this up. You should express your opinion. On the right of the old man in the military uniform sat Xiang Tian, and on the left sat a slightly plump old man in his 50s. Obviously, this was old Fu. Bai Xiaowen is a major suspect of endangering the safety of the base city. In order to protect the lives and property of the people of the base city from threats, Bai Xiaowen must be subject to long-term supervision and comprehensive investigation. His attributes, equipment, skills, storage space, and other personal information must be disclosed. He must also cooperate with a physical examination. Fu Yiping said with a straight face, of course, if he's willing to voluntarily hand over the dangerous item that attracted the high-ranking demon, not only will he not be subject to supervision, but he will also be praised. Wu Chonglian, the president of the Guild of Excellence, said quickly, the Guild of Excellence agrees with President Fu's wise decision. Li Beihai's face was a little pale. He stared at Fu Yiping and said, President Fu, do you have any evidence that Bai Xiaowen endangers the safety of the base city? Fu Yiping said, no, but all the signs indicate that he's very suspicious. In other words, without any evidence, the officials are going to search an awakened and restrict his freedom? Li Beihai sneered. Why don't we have a vote? Let's see how many awakened ones support this decision, including the lowest-ranking awakened ones. Xiang Tian coughed and expressed his opinion. This kind of precedent is not easy to set. It will make all the awakened ones feel insecure. If we can't find anything, it will have a great negative impact on the association. When that happens, who will bear the responsibility? Wu Chonglian, the president of the Guild of Excellence, shut his mouth at the mention of bearing the responsibility. Fu Yiping frowned and said, I'm also considering the safety of the people of the base city. We can't be overcautious just because we're afraid of bearing the responsibility. Chapter 139. Bai Xiaowen did not panic as he sat across from a group of big shots. The old man in the military uniform said, I'm Yang Yongkang, the commander of the Jinghai City Military Division. I'm also the president of the Awakened Association. Bai Xiaowen, you performed outstandingly in the defense of the city. The Awakened Association will commend you. We hope that you will continue to work hard to protect the people. Bai Xiaowen coughed softly. Well, that's what I should do. Commander Yang, what I'm curious about is sending the big cap to my house and forcibly escorting me here a way to commend me? I'm just a country bumpkin. This is the first time I've seen such a commendation. Yang Yongkang was a little embarrassed. He had planned to say a few good words to fool Bai Xiaowen so that the latter would let down his guard. But now, it seemed that Bai Xiaowen was quite resentful. There's some misunderstanding. Maybe the staff didn't understand what you meant, Yang Yongkang said. Bai Xiaowen, during the defense of the city, a high-level demon chased after you. This situation is very rare. So, President Fu and the Martial Arts Committee unanimously concluded that you have dangerous items that the high-level demon is interested in. Do you agree with their judgment? No, Bai Xiaowen said without hesitation. Liar. Wu Chonglian snorted. Yang Yongkang continued, then, are you willing to release your personal information and cooperate with our investigation? I don't agree with the invasion of privacy. Bai Xiaowen refused. That's not up to you. The safety of the people of the base city is the most important thing. Fu Yiping shouted angrily as he slammed the table. You're Vice President Fu, right? Did you send Chu Yuanbin? Bai Xiaowen looked at the slightly plump 50-year-old man and curled his lips. Stop pretending. You keep saying that it's for the safety of the base city. You just think that I might have high-level spiritual treasures on me and want to get them in the name of safety. To tell you the truth, I don't. Impossible. Fu Yiping snorted. I've already seen your profile. From your childhood to high school, you didn't have any outstanding points. It was only in the last few months of your third year of high school that you suddenly became a hero. Logically speaking, it's impossible. There must be something wrong with you. Can't I suddenly be enlightened? Bai Xiaowen snorted. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door of the conference room. Who is it? Don't you know we're having a standing committee meeting? Fu Yiping shouted angrily at the door, rolling his eyes at Bai Xiaowen's rebuke. The female inspector that Bai Xiaowen had seen before ran in while panting. Leader, quickly go and take a look. Our association's entrance has been blocked. Which guild's awakened is so bold as to block the entrance of the association? Fu Yiping was furious. He glared at Li Beihai and said, do you really think you can do whatever you want just because you're an awakened? Gather a team of special agents and arrest them all. No, they're not awakened, they're ordinary people. They're protesting. No, they're staging a sit-in. The female inspector said breathlessly. It seemed that she had run all the way here. Fu Yiping panicked slightly. The Awakened Association's function was to regulate the behavior of awakened. They had a certain degree of jurisdiction over awakened, so they were not afraid of awakened causing trouble. However, when it came to ordinary citizens, the Awakened Association had no good means to deal with them. It was the same principle as how anti-aircraft guns could not kill flies. Take Fu Yiping for example. He kept saying that it was for the safety of the city and the interests of the people. How could he order his awakened special agents to deal with ordinary citizens? Even if he gave such an order, it would be a random order. A special agent with a normal IQ would not take action. The female inspector finally caught her breath and added, "Leader, there are dozens of reporters following them. They said that they had an appointment with Bai Xiaowen." When they heard that Bai Xiaowen had been arrested and brought to the Awakened Association, they all followed. Ring ring ring. The office phone in the conference room rang. After a staff member picked up the call, he made a few sounds. His face became a little strange as he covered the microphone. It's a reporter from the Jinghai Pioneer. He said that he wants to interview the college entrance examination's top scorer about the case. Refuse. Just say that the case, no, the specific situation is still under investigation. Fu Yiping said. Less than 2 seconds after hanging up, another call came in. The staff member picked up the call again. After listening to a few words, he smiled bitterly and covered the microphone. This time it's the Jinghai Evening News. Hang up. Fu Yiping only said 2 words. Ring ring ring, this time it's the Huaxia Youth Daily. He had to pick up the phone. Seeing Fu Yiping's increasingly gloomy expression, the staff member's face became bitter. The Huaxia Youth Daily was a national newspaper. Its influence was different from the local newspapers in Jinghai. Fu Yiping walked over and snorted twice. Then, he hung up the phone. Unplugged the phone line. Finally, there were no more calls coming in. The big shots in the conference room looked at each other. For a moment, the atmosphere was a little awkward. President, you have to pay attention to your image. Xiang Tian coughed and broke the silence. There were several presidents in the conference room. However, only Yang Yongkang could call the president without his surname. Yang Yongkang whispered a few words in Xiang Tian's ear. Xiang Tian said, Student Bai Xiaowen, I have a compromise. We won't personally examine you. You just need to open up your personal data and let the psionic camera scan it. The psionic camera won't be connected to the internet. Its parameters have been set in advance. As long as it discovers an item containing high-grade psionic particles, it will alert the police. If the scan ends and there is no alarm, you'll be fine. When the time comes, we'll just destroy the psionic camera. Your privacy won't be exposed. How about it? Yang Yongkang also persuaded, it'll be good for you to have a check. You don't want the rumor of you being in possession of a treasure to not be cleared and attract unnecessary attention, right? These words were on point. Bai Xiaowen felt that the act was about done and nodded. Fu Yiping snorted. In addition to the item, you still have to undergo a physical examination. If there are no problems in both areas, you'll pass. Bai Xiaowen stared at Fu Yiping. If there are no problems, what should I say? Vice President Fu, shouldn't you compensate me for the mental damage, and the damage to my reputation? Fu Yiping said indifferently, don't worry. Whether it's money or psionic points. As long as there are no problems, I'll give you a satisfactory number. Xiang Tian laughed. Old Fu is the president of the Giant Gods Guild. You can ask for any compensation amount. He won't even frown. Fu Yiping glanced sideways at Xiang Tian. He didn't say anything and just urged, hurry up and check. Chapter 140. Bai Xiaowen checked and found that the psionic camera was indeed not connected to the internet. Bai Xiaowen chose to open his personal data to the psionic camera and entered scanning mode. Because of the settings, every time the psionic camera scanned a part, the results would be broadcasted. Personal attribute bar scanned. No high-grade psionic particles detected. Personal equipment bar scanned. No high-grade psionic particles detected. Personal skill bar scanned. No high-grade psionic particles detected. Personal specialty bar scanned. No high-grade psionic particles detected. Attempting to scan storage space. Obtaining access, the atmosphere in the conference room was a little tense. A group of bigwigs stared at him without blinking. Personal storage space scanned. High-grade psionic particles detected. The alarm beeped. The expressions of the bigwigs in the conference room changed slightly. Wu Chonglian said excitedly, "That's right, we found it. You're the real culprit who attracted the high-grade demons to attack the base city." Bai Xiaowen was startled at first, but suddenly thought of something. He waved his hand and said, "Hey, I forgot. This should be the thing that was detected. Wait a minute." Bai Xiaowen took out the dozen or so drops of Balrog bone marrow and showed it to everyone. That day, 3 experts chopped off the Balrog's arm. They didn't care for the dozen or so drops of bone marrow that fell out, so I picked them up in the spirit of thrifty Chinese ancestral teachings. These bone marrow came from the Balrog, so you can't say that they were the ones who attracted the monster, right? Xiang Tian was slightly surprised. The queen bee didn't take the bone marrow with her? Well, that's really her style. After Bai Xiaowen took out the bone marrow, he gave the psionic camera access to the storage space again. Personal storage space scanned. No high-grade psionic particles detected. Finally, it was the full-body scan. The eyeball of the advanced psionic camera shot out a thin beam of green light. Like an X-ray, it shone from Bai Xiaowen's head to his heel. When it scanned his left eye, Bai Xiaowen was a little worried. However, the advanced psionic camera didn't react at all, nor did it sound any alarm. Full-body scan has been performed. No high-level spiritual particles detected. A smile appeared on Li Beihai's face. He walked over and patted Bai Xiaowen's shoulder vigorously. "Ha! I told you there was no problem. The invasion of the city by the monsters and the invasion of the high demons is simply a coincidence. It has nothing to do with our guilds." Bai Xiaowen. Yang Yongkang nodded. "I've watched the surveillance video several times. The Balrog's arm did not attack the others first. It went straight for Bai Xiaowen. Perhaps it was because no one else dared to move. Only Bai Xiaowen moved, which attracted the Balrog's attention and made her the target." Fu Yiping and Sui were at a loss for words. Bai Xiaowen grabbed the spiritual camera floating in the air and crushed it. He was actually quite happy. This way, he could be considered to have proven his innocence. With the big shots of Jinghai City's Metahuman Association as proof, there would not be any powerhouses who would take the risk to find trouble with him. However, there was no smile on Bai Xiaowen's face. He only sighed heavily. Yes, surviving for more than 10 seconds under the attack of the high demon and dragging it out until reinforcements arrived was very difficult. For this, I even used a precious A-grade item. Bai Xiaowen described the attributes of the Deceit Talisman. This item has a miraculous effect. I originally planned to use it in the next Spirit World adventure. However, for the safety of the other 4 metahumans in the team and the thousands of people in the underground shelter, I still took the initiative to attract the high demon's attention. But in the end, no one saw my losses. Instead, I was labeled as the one who lured the monsters into the city. How disappointing. It was finally time for Bai Xiaowen to show his acting skills. He sighed and said, "I have to say, this move by the Jinghai Base City Metahuman Association is really disappointing." The clamor of voices came from a great distance away. "What's going on outside?" Yang Yongkang frowned. The unlucky female inspector ran over again. "Sir, the number of people protesting outside has increased. It's close to 1,000 now. Some people are holding banners and slogans, saying..." She hesitated. What did they say? Don't be afraid. It doesn't matter if it's unpleasant. Yang Yongkang wanted to assess the situation outside. They said that they want President Fu and Wu to leave the Metahuman Association and stop suppressing the newcomers. They can't let heroes bleed and cry, the female inspector said with a shiver. Wu Chonglian glared at the female inspector. Just relay the message. What do you mean by imitating such an impassioned tone? Yang Yongkang found the problem. That's not right. They're sitting at the gate. How did they know what old Fu and old Wu said? Xiang Tian slapped his head and pointed at Bai Xiaowen. Classmate Bai, can you turn off the live stream? The psionic camera above Bai Xiaowen's head appeared. He said innocently, you all know that I'm a live stream host. Fu Yiping almost choked on his breath. He pointed at Bai Xiaowen. You, Bai Xiaowen ignored him. He took out his phone and scrolled through the comments in the live stream. Xiaowen, don't be afraid. We all support you. Brothers and sisters, I'm late. I just saw the live stream. I'm leaving now. Let's go, let's protest. Target, the main gate of the Metahuman Association. Let those officials see the determination of Xiaowen's support team. Bai Xiaowen smiled and interacted with the audience. Thank you for your concern. With your support, it's okay for me to be treated unfairly. I'm not afraid of a crooked shadow. Don't come again. I've already proven my innocence. As for President Fu pointing at me, it doesn't matter. Let him point. When he points at me, at least 4 of his fingers are pointing at himself. Fu Yiping's face twitched. He put down his hand. The moment he put down his hand, Yang Yongkang's phone beeped. Yang Yongkang glanced at the caller ID. His expression changed slightly. He stood up from the main seat and saluted. Hello, Chief. At this moment, all the big shots in the room stood up. Yang Yongkang followed the instructions on the other end of the phone and turned on the speaker. A clear voice sounded. What's the situation with the Metahuman Association in Jinghai Base City? I can't even get through to the office phone. Old Yang, I can only contact you directly. Yang Yongkang, yes, Chief. Please give me your instructions. Protecting the people and preventing danger is the responsibility of the Metahuman Association. But you also have to pay attention to your work attitude and work methods. Look, the college entrance examination top scorer fought bravely and protected the city. What a good thing. It proves the superiority of our Huasia's college entrance examination system. The publicity department wanted to use it as a positive example this year. You guys, on the other hand, arrested him and even spread it all over the internet. Yes. Yang Yongkang kept answering yes. When the chief finally finished speaking, he saluted again. Follow the chief's instructions. After hanging up the phone, Yang Yongkang let out a long sigh of relief. He glanced at Fu Yiping and Wu Chonglian expressionlessly. Their faces had already turned green with a hint of white. Chapter 141. Bai Xiaowen didn't know which god made the call. It was indeed a little out of his expectations, but it was reasonable. Bai Xiaowen's confidence came from the fact that he was the top scorer in the college entrance examination. Now that the examination had just ended, it was the center of attention. Countless pairs of eyes from the media all over the country were watching. As long as there were no problems with him, he had nothing to be afraid of. In addition, Bai Xiaowen was also a popular live streamer and had accumulated a lot of die-hard fans. For the Awakened Association, it was more troublesome for ordinary people to band together than for awakened ones. They couldn't catch them or chase them away. If they weren't careful, it would lead to a group incident that would make the headlines. Now that there was an order from a higher-up, it could be said that this storm had been completely settled. Next, it was time to counterattack. Oh no, to ask for reasonable compensation. Yang Yongkang wanted Bai Xiaowen to turn off the live stream because he wanted to engage in some insider trading. In the following media interviews, they would be able to unify their statements and prevent the incident from escalating. Everyone heard the chief's call. You can rest assured now. I'm really fine. At Commander Yang's request, I have to turn off the live stream. I'm really grateful for everyone's support. I'll go back tonight and have a good chat with everyone. Bai Xiaowen gave a perfect smile to the psionic camera. The comments in the live stream, phew. I took a screenshot of Xiaowen's smile just now and used it as my screensaver. Screensaver +1. Licking the screen. There's something shady going on. They're going to pay hush money. Don't turn off the live stream. We want to see the boss negotiating. We want to see the insider trading. Proud princess, everyone, stop fooling around. If Xiaowen continues to live stream, he will offend a lot of people. Another ID, Sugar Duckling, added, the person above is right. Xiaowen, go offline first. See you tonight. I'll wait for you. Bai Xiaowen also had an impression of this Sugar Duckling fan. Basically, he would send gifts every time he started a live stream. He was one of the top 10 rich fans in the live stream. After thanking him again, Bai Xiaowen turned off the psionic camera and went offline. Yang Yongkang secretly sighed in relief. Bai Xiaowen's attitude was the key to whether or not the chief's instructions could be implemented. He waved his hand and began to chase everyone out. Staff, please leave for a moment, and close the door. The door closed, and the meeting room became quiet. Student Bai Xiaowen, on behalf of the Awakened Association, I would like to apologize to you. But you have to believe that old Fu and the others are doing this out of a sense of responsibility for the safety of the people. That's why they insisted on checking you. Later, during the media interviews and interactions with your fans, please take a rational point of view and explain things clearly. Don't let the media misunderstand, and don't let the public and the government have opposing sentiments. Bai Xiaowen said, Commander Yang, I'm a little dizzy, flustered, short of breath, and weak. What happened? I didn't have much time to rest after the battle before I was captured and brought here by guild leader Fu. My phone was confiscated and I was interrogated. My mental state was severely damaged. Yang Yongkang naturally understood. He nodded at Fu Yiping, his meaning clear. Fu Yiping was a little embarrassed, so he reluctantly snorted twice. It's the fault of the people below. Bai Xiaowen, as long as you don't talk nonsense to the media, I will compensate you for your mental state. Name a price. Bai Xiaowen perked up. 10 million. No problem. Fu Yiping's expression did not change, but he was secretly delighted. A low-level awakened who just transitioned not long ago has such shallow eyesight. Bai Xiaowen calmly added. Psionic energy points. The big shots in the meeting room were collectively shocked. Fu Yiping coughed violently. What did you say? 10 million psionic energy points. Bai Xiaowen blinked. Why don't you go rob a bank? That's impossible, absolutely impossible. Fu Yiping roared. Wu Chonglian chimed in, do you know the ratio of psionic energy points to real money? You really dare to ask for 10 million psionic energy points? Bai Xiaowen chuckled and said, then I'll ask for less. 99 million psionic energy points will do. Yang Yongkang could tell that Bai Xiaowen's goal was not psionic energy points at all. He helped by saying, it's impossible to ask for so many psionic energy points. Bai Xiaowen, you can't ask for a sky-high price like this. Old Fu, if you have any equipment or items that are suitable for Bai Xiaowen, take them out as compensation as an apology. Fu Yiping said, Bai Xiaowen used an A-grade item, so I'll compensate him with an A-grade item. As he spoke, he took out an ancient scroll. This is a combat item. It's much better than your deceit talisman. Bai Xiaowen used insight. Originally, he could only see the words explosion array, A-grade item, but under insight, he could see all the information on the scroll. Explosion array, A-grade item. It needs to be set up in advance. It causes fire damage to enemies within a radius of 100 meters and has an additional deceleration effect. Usage requirement, advanced to level 10 fire specialty. President Fu, it seems you don't have any sincerity at all. Bai Xiaowen pursed his lips. Usage requirement, advanced to level 10 fire specialty? If I had that level of specialty, would I need this tattered scroll? Fu Yiping's old face turned red. This scroll was indeed a useless item. Old Fu, Bai Xiaowen has the insight, talent. Don't use this little trick of yours. Yang Yongkang gave Fu Yiping a contemptuous look. Show your sincerity. The Giant Gods Guild is an A-grade guild, after all. Don't be so stingy. Fu Yiping sighed and took out another scroll. This is the biggest compensation I can give. If he is still not satisfied, then let him tell the media what he wants. At worst, I'll just quit as the vice president. Fu Yiping's words were not entirely false. He was the guild leader of the Giant Gods Guild. Being the vice president of the Awakened Association was just a part-time job. Although the Giant Gods Guild would benefit from this official status, it would be impossible for the guild to pay an exorbitant price for it. Although Fu Yiping was afraid of the bureau chief who had called him, he was not afraid of him like a tiger. This was different from Yang Yongkang. Yang Yongkang was a member of the military system. The instructions from above were very important to him. He must do his best to complete them. Oh, it's actually a silver item? Yang Yongkang's eyes lit up. Student Bai Xiaowen, this time, old Fu is sincere enough, right? Under Bai Xiaowen's insight, the scroll item's attributes were revealed. Chapter 142. Bai Xiaowen was a little tempted. Before this, the props that Bai Xiaowen had come into contact with were all ordinary props, which were common goods. Above ordinary props, there were silver props, which were rare goods. Generally speaking, silver props were at least 2 grades higher than ordinary props of the same level. In other words, this B-grade silver Book of Revelation was actually equivalent to an S-grade ordinary prop. With a total of 2 uses, there was only one left. Its value was only equivalent to half of an S-grade ordinary prop. Even so, the value of this Book of Revelation still exceeded that of an ordinary A-grade prop. Only one use left? Bai Xiaowen muttered, well, using a used second-hand product as compensation, isn't that a little? Fu Yiping said, it's better if you don't want it. Return the silver props to me, and I can compensate you with 30,000 psionic energy points. Forget it, I'll take it. Bai Xiaowen took the Book of Revelation. To level up a combat skill, one needed to accumulate proficiency points. Once the proficiency points were maxed out, one would need to spend psionic energy points. The price was definitely not small. Moreover, the further one progressed, the more proficiency points needed to level up a skill would be. Although Bai Xiaowen wanted to gamble on his luck and use this Book of Revelation directly, there was a 1/3 chance that it would be added to the Summon Wrathclaw skill and produce a level 4 special effect. However, from a rational point of view, this was obviously not the most beneficial choice. The main reason was that Bai Xiaowen's current combat skill levels were relatively low, so it was relatively easy to level them up. Therefore, he saved this Book of Revelation and trained his combat skills first. When his combat skills were upgraded to a high level, he could use it to maximize the benefits. Of course, in an emergency or critical moment where he urgently needed to improve his combat skills, he could also use it directly. In fact, Bai Xiaowen did not think that he could use this to bring down a big shot like Fu Yiping. After all, he was the president of an A-grade guild, the Giant Gods Guild. He was a powerhouse with a higher status than Li Beihai. Even if Bai Xiaowen used all means to temporarily remove Fu Yiping from his position as the vice president of the Awakened Association, what could he do? For Fu Yiping, this was far from a serious injury. However, the price was to completely intensify the conflict. It was not worth it to be completely opposed to an A-grade guild. Therefore, it was enough to make Fu Yiping pay a painful price and teach him a lesson. Seeing Bai Xiaowen accept the Book of Revelation, Fu Yiping secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Of course, he didn't want to give up his official position as the association's vice president so easily. President Fu's sincerity, well, it's just SOSO. Mr. Wu. Bai Xiaowen glanced at him. It's your turn. Wu Chonglian's eyes widened. What did I do to you? Don't look so innocent. Bai Xiaowen said slowly. I said at the beginning that I didn't have any high-level dangerous items on me. None of the big shots in the room said anything, and you jumped out and said that I was lying. Wu Chonglian, I only said 2 words. 2 words, 10,000 per word. How about that? Bai Xiaowen said, I am a very honest person. President Fu has already compensated me, so I will definitely not ask him to take the blame. If you don't compensate me. You'll take the blame? Wu Chonglian's chest heaved. Although the Guild of Elite Forces was a B-grade guild, it was stronger than the super gods. It was not that Wu Chonglian could not afford 20,000 points of spiritual energy, but he could not hold back his anger. Fu Yiping knocked on the table. That's enough. I'll pay the 20,000 points on behalf of Mr. Wu. Bai Xiaowen, I hope you are as honest as you said. Wu Chonglian, President Fu, how can you? In the end, I was the one who insisted on doing things my own way. I should be the one to bear the responsibility. Old Wu, you don't have to be so polite. Our 2 families are on the same side, and we will help each other in the future, Fu Yiping said. Bai Xiaowen received the 20,000 points of spiritual energy from Fu Yiping and exclaimed in his heart. This old man had used this opportunity to buy people's hearts. Now that the compensation had been given, the next step was to unify their statements and turn a big problem into a small one. Bai Xiaowen sat in Li Beihai's car and left the Awakened Association in a happy mood. President, what is the background of Fu Yiping and Wu Chonglian? They seem to be targeting me. Bai Xiaowen, who was sitting in the front passenger seat, turned his head and asked. Li Beihai, who was sitting in the back seat, said, speaking of which, it is an old conflict between guilds. Both of them are not on good terms with us. Take Wu Chonglian's Guild of Elite Forces as an example. In the early years, before I retired, the main team of the Super Gods was also a strong team in the B-grade league. They often suppressed the Guild of Elite Forces. That old man, Wu Chonglian, is too narrow-minded. He can't afford to lose in a competition, so he challenged me to a real PK. I beat him up so badly that even his grandma couldn't recognize him. From then on, the conflict between us grew bigger and bigger. Bai Xiaowen listened with great interest. What about Fu Yiping? The Giant Gods Guild is a B-grade guild. They should not have any conflict with us. Li Beihai's eyes suddenly turned somewhat gloomy. After a moment of silence, he said, this matter involves another case. Actually, it doesn't matter if I tell you. Do you know Ling Feng? Bai Xiaowen quickly recalled the name and said, I have heard of him. It seems Old Yao is unwilling to talk about him. Old Yao, he still can't get over this knot in his heart. Forget it, there is no need to talk about him. Ling Feng is now considered a celebrity. He often appears in the B-grade league. He is a tank-type hero. You actually don't know him? Bai Xiaowen smiled bitterly and said, I don't even have time to watch the Super Cup, let alone the domestic B-grade league. Li Beihai sighed and said, back then, Ling Feng was an A-class member of our guild. He was a star with potential. The guild poured a lot of resources into him, hoping that under the leadership of such a hero-class tank, we could enter the B-grade league. Unfortunately, the other members of the guild were not good enough. Additionally, Ling Feng's level was relatively low back then. After 2 years, he was stuck at the 3rd or 4th place in the B-grade league. In the end, Ling Feng left the guild. He went to the Giant Gods Guild. Bai Xiaowen guessed. Li Beihai nodded his head and said, his dream has come true. He is now the core member of the Giant Gods Guild's main team. Speaking of which, I have not seen him for a long time. Due to his transfer, our guild and the Giant Gods Guild got into a big fight. The conflict was also planted at that time. Bai Xiaowen thought about it and said, actually, there is nothing wrong with a transfer. However, transferring with a lot of resources from the guild is a bit too cold. Once he leaves, won't the main team of the Super Gods collapse? The corners of Li Beihai's mouth twitched and he did not say anything. In the end, He could only mutter, "The little bastards of the guild are disappointing. If only I had not retired." According to the rules of the Elite League, awakened ones who were over 35 years old would automatically retire. Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, "Guild leader, don't be discouraged. Our guild will definitely be able to enter the B-grade league in the future. When we meet that kid Ling Feng in the competition, I will beat him up to vent your anger." Chapter 143. "I haven't thought about it yet," Bai Xiaowen said. Basically, all the universities in the major base cities had sent him, the strongest scholar in history, an invitation letter, equivalent to a one-sided admission letter. Bai Xiaowen could go to any university he wanted. Li Beihai said, "In fact, the combat department of every university in the country employs awakened powerhouses as instructors. In terms of teaching ability, they are similar. The only difference is the source of students. Yen University and Tsinghua University have the best source of students in the country. The university student teams of these two schools are also old and strong teams. If you want to make a difference in the CUAA, choosing Yen University or Tsinghua University is a good choice." Bai Xiaowen smiled. "No, it makes no difference to me in this regard. Whichever school I go to, that school will be the CUAA champion. Sometimes I find that you are quite arrogant." Li Beihai shook his head. "Don't underestimate the value of the CUAA. Some strong teams are led by heroes, and there is more than one. Old Yao once made an assessment. The Yen University team that won the CUAA championship last year already has the strength to compete with the teams in the second division. They are not at a disadvantage in terms of level and attributes. What they lack is combat expertise and experience. There are differences between hero professions. There is no such thing as the strongest profession, only the strongest awakened." Bai Xiaowen shook his head and stopped discussing this topic. Xu Yi's combat experience is full. She needs to go to the spirit realm soon to level up. I didn't get a ticket to the spirit realm last time. President, do you have a way to get one? Li Beihai said. Xu Yi also told me about this. The spirit realm ticket is a bit difficult to get. Every awakened needs to use it every time they level up. The production can't keep up with the consumption. I will buy it at the virtual hall of the awakened platform. Buy it as soon as possible. There was no way to stock the spirit realm ticket. There was a time limit to its use. It was similar to the time limit of the class change mission. After the time limit, it would automatically turn into psionic particles and dissipate. Therefore, as the president of the guild, Li Beihai would not stock up on tickets. If he wanted tickets, he would have to buy them at the last minute. When the car arrived at the main entrance of the Awakened Association, the group of protesting fans had not completely dispersed. Bai Xiaowen got out of the car and interacted with his fans in real life, which instantly ignited the atmosphere of the venue. Most of the fans were girls, and many of them were young girls in their prime. They were at the age where they chased after celebrities. If he was an ordinary celebrity in the entertainment industry, he would need bodyguards or even riot police to protect him. But for an awakened celebrity like Bai Xiaowen, there was no need for that. To put it bluntly, the hundreds of fans added together were no match for him. This was also the reason why there were very few paparazzi and sightseeing fans who would secretly take pictures of awakened celebrities. The other party's combat strength was too high, and their perception was sharp. Once they were discovered, they couldn't run away. If they encountered someone with a bad temper, no one would sympathize with them even if they were beaten half to death. As for the fanatical fans, there was a layer of psionic energy field as protection. As long as Bai Xiaowen willed it, it could produce a slight repulsive force towards targets that did not contain psionic particles, pushing them away. It was probably the first time Bai Xiaowen's fans had seen him in real life, so they were rather polite. Other than rushing to shake Bai Xiaowen's hand and take photos with him, they did not do anything out of line. Bai Xiaowen repeatedly thanked his fans for their support and persuaded them to go home. After going through a lot of trouble for 2 to 3 hours, he finally got into Li Beihai's car and drove all the way back to his home in the Crimson Fire District. When he pushed open the door, the living room was filled with people. Bai Xiaowen jumped in fright. "Thank God, you're finally back." Li Shi was helping Yi Jiqing wash fruits to entertain the guests. When he saw Bai Xiaowen, he was very happy. She was one of the people who cared the most about what had happened today. She had been watching the results through the live broadcast. "Yes, I'm fine." Bai Xiaowen looked at the room full of people and was somewhat dumbfounded. Where did these people come from? Reporters? At that moment, the crowd in the living room also noticed Bai Xiaowen. Their eyes lit up like bears that had discovered honey. They quickly gathered around him. "You're Bai Xiaowen, right? Hey, you're exactly the same as on your admission ticket. You're a handsome guy." A beautiful woman wearing red-rimmed glasses reached out her hand first. "I'm from the admissions office of Tsinghua University. My name is Qiao Wei. You can call me Teacher Qiao." Bai Xiaowen shook hands with the beautiful woman wearing red-rimmed glasses. He was still a little confused as he said, "Hello, Teacher Qiao." "Student Bai Xiaowen, did you receive the invitation letter?" "Actually, we sent out the invitation letter before your scores were released. Now that we're here in person, we're very sincere. Now, on behalf of Tsinghua University, I formally invite you to enroll. Your tuition and accommodation fees are waived. You'll even receive a scholarship every semester." Before Qiao Wei could finish speaking, a middle-aged man with a thick beard and wide shoulders squeezed over. He looked like an airplane mechanic. "Student Xiao Bai, I'm Zhou Guoxing from the admissions office of Tsinghua University. You can call me Old Zhou." If we're talking about choosing a school, of course it's still Tsinghua University. We have 206 years of history. We have a deep heritage and a rich cultural atmosphere. A voice faintly came over. After the era of psionic abilities, all the universities in the base cities have basically been rebuilt. Everyone has less than 100 years of history. Zhou Guoxin glared angrily at the person who exposed him. However, the person who spoke ignored him and squeezed over to shake hands with Bai Xiaowen. "Hello, I'm a teacher from the admissions office of Inner Mongolia University. My name is Arslan. Our school is located in the vast grasslands of Inner Mongolia. Student Xiaowen, don't you have a commander-grade wolf? It's very suitable for our school. Come to our school. In less than a year, you'll be able to subdue hundreds and thousands of mutated wolves and become a true wolf king. Don't just randomly write empty promises. Hundreds and thousands of them? Do you have enough skill slots?" Following another voice that exposed him, a fourth teacher, a capable beauty with short, dyed red hair, squeezed over. "Student Bai Xiaowen, I'm Teacher Yan Xiaoxin from the admissions office of Jinghai University. You should come to our Jinghai University. It's the closest place to home." Seeing Yan Xiaoxin play the hometown card, the others did not want to be outdone. They all came forward to praise the advantages of their own universities. Stop. Teachers, isn't what you're saying a bit too messy?" Bai Xiaowen put his right hand's fingers together and placed them vertically in the palm of his left hand. He made a classic stop gesture. "How about this, each of you write down the advantages of your universities on paper. I'll think about which university I should choose." The dozen or so people present basically represented a dozen or so of the top universities in the country. The universities that were not as good as them did not think that they could snatch the top scorer of the college entrance examination, so they did not join in the fun. Everyone had high IQ. When they heard Bai Xiaowen's arrangement, they all nodded. Chapter 144. Of course, there was a limit to the conditions that the admissions teachers offered. The admissions teachers had certain privileges, such as scholarships, free tuition, independent accommodation, and so on. Anyway, it was a victory if they could recruit people. The school would pay for all the preferential treatment. Everyone wrote down all the preferential treatment that they could within the scope of their authority. In addition to the preferential treatment, some teachers with literary talent also combined the scenery and cultural advantages of their own universities and wrote a paragraph of prose, haiku, and poetry. It was quite hard work. While the teachers were quiet, Li Shi put 2 plates of apples on the table. He then walked back and whispered, "I stopped the reporters outside. The interview has been postponed. These are all admissions teachers from various universities. It's not good for me to not let them in. Isn't this too enthusiastic?" Bai Xiaowen thought of something and whispered, "You're on the college entrance examination silver list. They should have invited you, right?" "What did you say?" Li Shi said without hesitation, "I'll go wherever you go." "Okay, buy one, get one free." "No wonder," Bai Xiaowen said. "I thought that the top scorer of the college entrance examination wouldn't make so many teachers fight over him." In fact, Bai Xiaowen underestimated the power of the top scorer of the college entrance examination. This was a national unified exam, one paper in the entire country. The top scorer of the college entrance examination was several times more valuable than the top scorer of the college entrance examination from various provinces in another space-time period. It was even hundreds of times more valuable than the top scorer of the college entrance examination. Moreover, Bai Xiaowen's score was at least 100 points higher than the previous top scorers of the college entrance examination. As the top scorer in history, the principal of any university that recruited him could brag about it for a year. Soon, the teachers finished writing one by one and handed the pages to Bai Xiaowen. It felt like they were collecting homework. Bai Xiaowen flipped through the pages one by one and thought to himself. Yin University and Tsinghua University offered normal conditions like scholarships and grants. I really don't care, Jiangnan University's offer is not bad. Other than the scholarship, they also provide a single apartment that can accommodate a personal assistant. It's quite convenient. Forget about the University of Inner Mongolia. The reward is an elite mutated wolf. It's not worth it to take up my last skill slot. As Bai Xiaowen flipped through the pages, the teachers in the admissions offices of each school rolled their eyes. Jinghai University's offer is so good? Bai Xiaowen pulled out a piece of paper from the pile. Excuse me, Jinghai University's admissions office. Teacher Yan, you've written on this paper that the special reward is a ticket to the spirit realm every semester. Is this true? Yin Xiaoxin nodded. Of course. What I wrote on it is true. Bai Xiaowen nodded and said, then I choose Jinghai University. Wait. Qiao Wei from Beijing University pushed up her red-rimmed glasses. What did Jinghai University offer? A ticket to the spiritual realm? Let me have a look. Bai Xiaowen handed the paper to Qiao Wei. This. Jinghai University is too generous, isn't it? The scholarship is in the form of spiritual power points, a small villa, and a ticket to the spirit realm. After Qiao Wei confirmed it, she was a little incredulous. This is completely over the line. Yin Xiaoxin nodded reservedly. I met the dean before I came. Qiao Wei pursed her lips and didn't say anything. The other teachers rushed over and looked at the conditions written by Yin Xiaoxin. Then, they all shook their heads. This is too preferential treatment. It's obviously disrupting the market. Qiao Wei blinked and said to Bai Xiaowen, Student Bai Xiaowen, I think you should consider something more long-term. For example, international fame? You can't play in Division A and Division B right now. You can only play in CUAA, which is the National University Awaken League. If you can become the main player of the CUAA champion team, your international fame won't be less than the stars of Division B, right? With international fame, you can draw a ticket every 3 months. The more famous you are, the better the ticket. After pausing for a bit, Qiao Wei continued, Yin University was the champion of CUAA last year. Our captain, Ouyang Heng, is in his 4th year this year. He can still fight for another year. We'll defend our title this year. It's basically set in stone. After you enter the university, you can directly win the championship with the team. Not only will you be famous, but you'll also be rewarded for your achievements. Xiao Wei pushed her red-rimmed glasses and glanced at Jinghai University's Yan Xiaoxin. She didn't forget to add, Jinghai University hasn't entered the top 8 in recent years. Xiao Wei's words seemed to open a new door. Immediately, someone came to a realization. Jiangnan University is also very strong. We were in the top 4 last year. Our captain, Qi Ruifeng, is a hero. But they were still eliminated by Lin Haoyang from Tsinghua University. Uncle Zhou, the aircraft mechanic, stroked his beard proudly. If it weren't for bad luck, last year's championship would have been ours. Bai Xiaowen observed everyone's expressions and basically confirmed that these people wouldn't add any additional conditions. The bid they placed at the beginning was already the best they could get. Thank you, teachers. I've decided to choose Jinghai University, Bai Xiaowen said. Yan Xiaoxin finally breathed a sigh of relief. Despite the generous conditions, Yan Xiaoxin still didn't have much confidence. After all, Jinghai University's team was a little weak. Their performance in CUAA had been very low in recent years. This time, a hero had appeared at their doorstep. Furthermore, he was the top scholar in the country. Jinghai University had the advantage of being close to him. If he was snatched away by other schools, wouldn't it be a sign to the entire Jinghai University and even the entire country that Jinghai University was inferior to other universities? The choice of the strongest champion in history was a win vain. When the time came, it could affect the decision of a large number of high-scoring candidates. If it weren't for the monster siege, Yan Xiaoxin would have already gone to her door. She had made a military order to bring the top scorer home. Seeing that Bai Xiaowen had made up his mind, the teachers from the other schools couldn't persuade him anymore. How could they persuade him? They couldn't come up with such good conditions. After sending the teachers off, Bai Xiaowen asked Yan Xiaoxin to stay. Teacher Yan, about the reward ticket you mentioned. Can you cash it out first? To tell you the truth, I'm in urgent need of a ticket to Spirit World. Yan Xiaoxin chuckled and nodded. Don't worry. I'll ask the dean. We'll have news in 2 days. Okay. Oh, right. Spirit World tickets can't be hoarded, right? There's a time limit. Bai Xiaowen thought of this. Yan Xiaoxin shook her head and said, Jinghai University's Spirit World tickets are all placed in the final treasure chest of the trial space. Before the treasure chest is opened, it's frozen. You can enter the trial space and fight your way to the end. Then, you can open the treasure chest and get it. That troublesome? Bai Xiaowen was stunned. The trial space is a good opportunity to gain experience. You need honor points to enter. It's even better than the Spirit World. You don't need to go through the plot. The projection of the boss will appear directly. Although the projection of the boss won't drop equipment, you can increase your combat experience and hone your combat skills and specialties. In the treasure chest at the end of the trial, other than the Spirit World ticket reward, there are also items put in by the strong people in the school. Many students can't wait for the chance to enter the trial. Yan Xiaoxin flipped her hair and said quickly, if you're afraid of trouble, you can find a senior who's strong enough and transfer the trial opportunity to him. He'll help you fight, and the ticket will be yours after the fight. As long as you post this on the school forum, I'm sure many seniors will come begging you. Chapter 145. From Yan Xiaoxin's words, Bai Xiaowen had a rough understanding of the trial spaces. Many key universities' combat departments had trial spaces. They were small, independent spaces that could be understood as small dungeons in games. As a precious cultivation resource, the trial space wasn't a place that could be entered just because one wanted to. One needed honor points to enter. There was only one way to obtain honor points, and that was to fight for the school's honor. For example, participating in the league was a good way to obtain honor points. Under normal circumstances, Bai Xiaowen needed to enter Jinghai University's team, participate in the CUAA League, and obtain a ranking. After obtaining honor points, he could enter the trial space to obtain tickets and other rewards. However, in order to recruit Bai Xiaowen, Jinghai University generously gave him one free entry every semester. According to Yan Xiaoxin, as long as he chose the right difficulty of the trial space, he would definitely be able to reach the end and open the chest. And every time he opened the chest, the spirit world ticket was guaranteed as a reward. Of course, Bai Xiaowen was happy to accept it. This was much more cost-effective than simply giving him a ticket to the spirit world every semester. Directly giving him a ticket to the spirit world had to be used within the time limit. Otherwise, the ticket would automatically disappear when it expired. And giving him a chance to challenge the trial space was equivalent to Bai Xiaowen depositing a ticket in a treasure chest at any time. When he needed to use it, he could just go and retrieve it. Bai Xiaowen picked out Jinghai University's invitation from a stack of invitation letters. He filled in his name and information on the reply letter and handed it to Yan Xiaoxin. Then, Bai Xiaowen opened the college entrance examination application form on his personal online account. He filled in Jinghai University's combat department and chose to submit it. Only then did he completely settle down. Yan Xiaoxin said, "I'll go back and report to the principal. I'll get the admissions office to set up your student ID and permissions in advance. I estimate that you'll be able to enter the trial space in 2 days at most." Bai Xiaowen said, "Ms. Yan, our president is in the virtual lobby trying to buy us a ticket to the spirit world. If you can buy it, I won't go to the trial space for the time being. Can you help me keep the access for the first semester of the first year?" Yan Xiaoxin nodded indifferently. "Of course you can. In short, you have one free chance to enter the trial space until the end of the semester. You can enter whenever you want. Moreover, the stronger you are, the more benefits you'll get when you enter the trial space." Bai Xiaowen nodded. He had two considerations. One was what Yan Xiaoxin had said. If he waited until his strength grew before entering the trial space, he would be able to obtain even more benefits. 2. The trial space tickets could be obtained at any time, so it was better to temporarily store them away in case of an emergency. If he could get a ticket for Li Beihai, he would use the ticket he had bought first. If he really couldn't get one, he would think about it again. If he used the entrance ticket to the end of the trial space for convenience, he would be in a passive position if he couldn't get a ticket to enter the spirit realm in the future. After seeing Yan Xiaoxin off, Bai Xiaowen went online and entered the guild's database. He searched for information on spatial rifts and the invasion of high-level monsters. This time, the invasion of the spirit realm monsters had caused spatial rifts to open all the way to the base city. This kind of situation was very rare. The appearance of the Balrog's arm was also very strange. Bai Xiaowen had a feeling that the Balrog's arm was probably after his mysterious left eyeball. Of course, Bai Xiaowen couldn't admit this in the Awakened Association. However, Bai Xiaowen didn't want the base city to be shrouded in the shadow of monster invasion because of him. If spatial rifts open near the base city in the future, and high-level demons like the Balrog and the Thunder Demon came out to cause trouble, the Jinghai base city would be in trouble. According to my speculation, it shouldn't be. However, I still need to get more information to verify it. It had been nearly 100 years since the beginning of the Psionic Era. Spatial rifts from the spirit realm to Earth had appeared countless times. According to the records in the Super Gods database, over 100 large-scale spatial rifts had been detected in the world in the past 10 years. There were also countless medium-sized and small spatial rifts associated with large-scale spatial rifts. In the year 89 of Ling Yuan, a large-scale spatial rift was detected in the no-man's land of Lop Nur. The intensity of the monster invasion was evaluated as level S. In the year 90 of Ling Yuan, a large-scale spatial rift was detected in the ice cap of Greenland. The intensity of the monster invasion was evaluated as level S. In the year 92 of Ling Yuan, a large-scale spatial rift was detected in the inland of Australia. The intensity of the monster invasion was evaluated as level A. In the year 96 of Ling Yuan, a small-scale spatial rift was detected in the southern buffer zone of Jinghai City in Huaxia. The intensity of the monster invasion was evaluated as level C. After flipping through the latest record, Bai Xiaowen closed his eyes. His super brain quickly started to analyze the patterns and connections. Judging from the pattern, Large-scale spatial rifts and monster invasions of level S and above all occur in no man's land where the concentration of psionic particles is very high. Large-scale spatial rifts of a lower grade, level A monsters invade. In addition to the no man's land, they also appear in the hinterland of the wilderness. They are also sparsely populated areas, but occasionally there are powerful awakened ones wandering around. Monsters of level B and below invasions. The spatial rifts are medium-sized and small-scale. They often appear in the periphery of the wilderness. This is the area where the human awakened ones are most active. After that, spatial rifts that appear directly in the buffer zone are very rare. This time, several small-scale spatial rifts appeared in the central area of the base city. It's even rarer to see them in 10 years. Coupled with the Balrog's arm crossing the border, it's no wonder that the Awakened Association found it strange. There were many papers on the cause of spatial rifts. Bai Xiaowen recognized one of them, the psionic particle synchronization hypothesis. The appearance of spatial rifts is related to the psionic particles of the two worlds. When the fluctuation amplitude of psionic particles in a certain plane of the spirit world and a certain area of the earth are similar, that is, psionic particle synchronization, spatial rifts will appear. And the higher the concentration of psionic particles, the larger the spatial rifts that appear. The more frequent the human activity, the lower the concentration of psionic particles. For example, the psionic particles of the base city and the spirit world are basically impossible to synchronize, so spatial rifts don't appear easily. Even if they do appear occasionally, the size of the rifts will be very small. On the other hand, the concentration of psionic particles in the hinterland of the wilderness and no man's land is very high. Psionic particle synchronization often occurs with the spirit world, so spatial rifts often appear, and there are many large-scale and super-large-scale rifts. This rule also applies to the spirit world. The barrier between the high-grade and low-grade planes of the spirit world is clear. The psionic particles are not synchronized, so there has never been a situation of interconnection. Therefore, when awakened ones below level 10 wander the spirit world, they won't encounter monsters at the level of evolvers. Bai Xiaowen was half relieved. This way, when he lived in the base city and explored the spirit world at the current stage, awakened ones below level 10, he would not be chased by high-grade demons across realms. In addition, Bai Xiaowen also thought of a highly probable answer regarding the mysterious eyeball being located by high-grade demons, the eyeball's evolution. The eyeball's concealment priority was very high, almost surpassing the rules of the spirit world. It could be seen that even the spirit world's prompt information could not be determined. Since Bai Xiaowen came to the age of psionic abilities, the mysterious eyeball had been hiding very well. Whether it entered the buffer zone or the wilderness, there had never been a situation where it was chased by high-grade demons across realms. And before the college entrance examination, the mysterious eyeball seemed to have absorbed enough energy and had undergone an evolution. The benefit that this evolution brought to Bai Xiaowen was undoubtedly the telepathy ability. He could sense the memory fragments of his slaves and share memories related to combat specialties. It was a very useful ability. But now it seemed that evolution was also accompanied by risks. During the evolution process, the self-concealment ability of the eyeball would temporarily disappear, so it attracted the attention of high-grade demons. But now, the mysterious eyeball should have regained its concealment ability. This mysterious eyeball that came from space and brought me 100 years in the future actually has the ability to evolve and level up. And from the fact that it still needs to deduct psionic energy points every time it uses insight, it can be judged that it has evolved more than once. In the future, I'll call it the Eye of Evolution. I have to remember the risks of evolution. Bai Xiaowen finished checking the information and prepared to rest for a while. Move the second time, hit the second time, hit the second time. Chapter 146. Bai Xiaowen looked around a little guiltily and found that there was no one around. "Hello, President." When the call was connected, Li Beihai's voice was a little excited. "Xiao Bai, I bought the ticket." "Huh? You bought it?" Bai Xiaowen was slightly stunned. You're quite lucky. Yes, there happened to be an anonymous seller who urgently needed a ticket to the spiritual realm. He didn't raise the price much, Li Beihai said with emotion. Last time, we were able to buy the temporary team building props because of the same anonymous seller. Xiao Bai, come to my office with Shi now. Bai Xiaowen was also very happy. He called Li Shi and the two of them took the elevator to the president's office. They saw the ticket to the spiritual realm. Speaking of which, this was the first time Bai Xiaowen saw the ticket to the spiritual realm in person. He had only seen some pictures before. On the table in front of Li Beihai, there was an old public telephone. However, under the inside of Bai Xiaowen's eye of evolution, he could see that this telephone contained a large number of psionic particles. It was a psionic item, which was completely different from the phones in the public phone booths on the street. Old public telephone teleports the user to the spiritual realm. Disappears after use. Remaining usage period, 18 hours, 52 minutes, 39 seconds. The countdown to the end of the usage period was still jumping. Li Beihai said proudly, this ticket only has less than a day left. The seller's asking price is not high. TSK, we're really lucky. What's the level of this ticket? Li Shi asked. Looking at the prefix of the word old, I know it's an E-level ticket. I've already used the psionic camera to check the psionic particles. It's an E-level ticket without a doubt, Li Beihai said. You won't have a good initial identity when you go to the spiritual realm. You'll have to rely on your personal abilities. The awakened who entered the spiritual realm through the ticket were different from the quasi-awakened who entered through the profession change mission. They would have an initial identity and did not need to make it up. The E-level ticket was the lowest level ticket. After being teleported in, their initial identity would be very poor. The last time he entered the Three Kingdoms plane to do the class advancement mission, there was no initial identity. Like an unregistered citizen, he had to make up an identity. Such a fabricated identity would generally not be able to withstand scrutiny. If the actions of the awakened aroused the suspicions of the people of the spirit world and they began to investigate, the consequences would be severe. This was also the reason why Bai Xiaowen had hurriedly returned after completing the class advancement quest and obtaining the most benefits. If he continued to stay in the Three Kingdoms plane, it would be easy for him to be discovered as an unregistered citizen and arouse suspicion. However, although the E-class ticket wasn't illegal, it was an even worse start than illegal. For example, slaves, servants, prisoners, hard laborers, it doesn't matter if the initial identity is bad. Bai Xiaowen shook his head and said, I'm more interested in which world this phone will take us to after we use it. Li Shi said, isn't it random? Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, random matching is also focused. Some tickets to the spirit world in the form of magic scrolls generally lead to a Western fantasy magic world after use. Some tickets in the form of bamboo slips and silk books lead to a world with an ancient Huaxia background. Then this phone should lead to a modern city-type world? Li Shi quickly reacted. That's right. Xiao Bai, there's another important issue that you have to pay attention to. That is, other awakened may also encounter you in the spirit world this time. Li Beihai continued and said, the first 2 times you entered the spirit world through the class advancement mission, you were in a temporary independent area and did not interact with other awakened. This time, it's different with the ticket. I know, I'll be careful, Bai Xiaowen replied. The spirit world was not like Earth, where there were surveillance cameras and psionic cameras everywhere. If there was a conflict of interest between the awakened, it was difficult to resolve it peacefully. Usually, they would decide the outcome with their fists. The awakened convention prohibited killing each other and there were provisions to protect the defeated. However, in the spirit world, the convention could not be enforced, so the binding effect was limited. I'll take this ticket first. There are still more than 10 hours left. I'll try to collect as much information as possible and go to the spirit world at noon tomorrow. I suggest you have a good night's rest, Li Beihai advised. I will. That night, Bai Xiaowen started a live broadcast as promised. He then announced that he was going to enter the spirit world, which was considered as asking for leave from his fans. After that, Li Shi accompanied by Xiaowen to look up information about the spirit world with a modern city-type setting in the guild's database. They were busy until 10 o'clock at night. Suddenly, Xiao Jun, who was in the living room, called out, "Brother, come and watch the news." Bai Xiaowen poked his head out of the room. On the evening news, the middle-aged female announcer's voice was steady and hypnotic. At 7:40 p.m. on June 10, Beijing time, a traffic accident occurred at Huaiyang High School on Qingfeng Road in Jinghai City. A male student was crossing the road on a motorcycle when he was hit and run over by a speeding truck. He died on the spot. It is reported that the student's name is Zhou Yi. His father is the former chairman of Badong Pharmaceuticals, Zhou Badong, who is now in prison. Zhou Yi failed the college entrance examination and drank a lot of alcohol in depression. This was the main reason for the traffic accident. Bai Xiaowen was a little surprised. Zhou Yi died just like that? Xiao Jun sighed, "That scum deserved to die. God will punish those who are despicable." She had an extremely bad impression of Zhou Yi. "Well, he's dead. Xiao Jun, don't worry about this matter. Look forward." Bai Xiaowen rubbed Xiao Jun's soft hair and returned to the room. After Bai Xiaowen became awakened, he and Zhou Yi were already in two different worlds. To be honest, whether Zhou Yi died or not did not have any substantial impact on Bai Xiaowen. On the contrary, Li Shi was more shocked. He said, "Zhou Yi's personal attributes are close to that of awakened. An ordinary car won't kill him. He was too unlucky to run into a big truck. I'm afraid it's not because of bad luck." Bai Xiaowen smiled. "Huh. Because he's too stupid." Bai Xiaowen narrowed his eyes and said, "His backer has fallen, but he still doesn't want to restrain himself. He always wants to make his presence known. It's always an eyesore." "You mean, it was Xiang Hui who did it?" Li Shi said thoughtfully. "Not necessarily. Although I've only met Xiang Hui a few times, I can roughly guess his nature. He doesn't seem like such a person. Or rather, he just graduated from high school. He's not that black-hearted," Bai Xiaowen said. "Then who did it?" Bai Xiaowen shook his head. "I don't know. In fact, if you want to investigate, you just need to check the flow of funds before and after the acquisition of Badong Pharmaceutical. You should be able to find some clues. However, I don't have the time to investigate, nor am I interested in investigating. In short, it doesn't matter who it is." Li Shi nodded and said nothing more. With her intelligence, she guessed some inside information from Bai Xiaowen's words. After a night's rest, they began to organize some information the next morning. At noon, Bai Xiaowen, Li Shi, and Xiao Jun went to Li Beihai's office again. "Are you ready?" Li Beihai asked. "Yes, I'm ready." Bai Xiaowen smiled at Xiao Jun. Then, he pressed his palm on the old telephone and chose to establish a temporary team. The prompt showed that 8,000 psionic points were deducted. After paying 2,000 psionic points, Li Shi joined Bai Xiaowen's team. Chapter 147. Matching Plane World. Matching successful. Character data has been scanned. Queuing, please wait, entering plane world, pride, jealousy, lust, hatred, a terrifying power slumbers in the abyss, bodies that died in vain become endless nutrients, a pitiful soul bears sweet fruit, the servants of the serpent of destruction walk the world, all living things will welcome the final purification. This narration allowed Bai Xiaowen to quickly learn the name and background of this plane world. The information he had looked up and the preparations he had made were very effective. This is the world of the King of Fighters. Set in Japan in the 1990s, the main factions are divided into two. Attracted by the King of Fighters tournament, the human faction represented by powerful martial artists and mutants from all over the world, and the Serpent of Destruction represented by the servants of the Serpent of Destruction. The Super Gods database showed that the King of Fighters world was very similar to a popular game in the Christian era called King, a fighter's fighting game. Many strong people in this plane world were also popular characters in the KOF game. Of course, there was only a certain degree of similarity. Players could not follow the game's plot and attack, or else they would die very miserably. The King of Fighters world was a small plane with low difficulty. Since the beginning of the Psionic Era, the Grand Unification plot had been triggered many times and had been rebooted many times. And every time it was rebooted, the details of the world's background would change a little. But no matter what, this was a small plane world that had been thoroughly researched by the Awakened. Although the Super Gods was only a small guild, they had collected a lot of information about the King of Fighters world. The Serpent of Destruction, Ori-Chi, was an amalgamation of the Earth's dark energy. The serpent's body was sealed 1800 years ago, but it could absorb the negative emotions in the human soul as its source of power and give its servants great power to walk the world on its behalf. The descendants of the three families that sealed the serpent each held a divine artifact and inherited the mission to fight against the Serpent of Destruction and its servants. They could be considered the most righteous branch of the human faction. There were many powerhouses from the human camp participating in the King of Fighters tournament, but there were many internal conflicts. Other than the noble Three Divine Weapons clan, the other experts were either gangsters, martial artists, mercenaries, or dishwashers in pubs. If the humans could unite as one, the serpent's servant would have been long gone. However, the serpent's power came from the negative emotions in the human heart. Therefore, the hypothesis that humans could unite as one was an untenable paradox. Bai Xiaowen opened his eyes. He was surrounded by darkness. He could only vaguely make out that he was in a small room. There was also a faint stench that wafted into his nostrils. Li Shi was not by his side. Bai Xiaowen released his spiritual power to scan the room and quickly understood the general layout of the small room. The hard and cold single iron bed was covered with some messy straw. There was also a toilet in the corner, and that was where the stench came from. As for Bai Xiaowen himself, well, one of his hands was handcuffed to the side railing of the iron bed, and his range of movement was very limited. Is this the treatment of an E-class ticket? A prisoner? Bai Xiaowen muttered. This should be a detention center, right? A memory information entered his mind. Bai Xiaowen frowned slightly and resisted the slight discomfort. This memory was obviously the initial identity information that the rules of the spiritual realm arranged for him based on the E-class ticket. Bai Xiaowen, from Huaxia, currently studying in Japan. Japanese name is Shirai Kaori. Bai Xiaowen did not have time to complain about this name. Then, he focused on the important information. As a foreign student, he was reduced to a detention center because he offended a senior cadre of the largest mafia in the south of Japan, the Matsuzaki Society. The cause was actually a righteous act. That senior cadre of the mafia also had a kind of bad taste. Instead of using the violent means of the mafia, he directly called the police. The upright teenager Shirai Kaori saw the darkness of society. As a righteous person, he was locked up in a detention center for 15 days. Today was only the 5th day of detention. A prompt message from the rules of the spiritual realm came: welcome to the plane of the King of Fighters. You can spend 100 psionic energy points to convert your language into the common language of the King of Fighters, Japanese. Detected that you are the captain of a team. The time your team members stay in the spiritual realm is equivalent to the time you stay in the main mission. Main mission, required choice activated. Mission objective, increase your reputation in any camp to reverence. Mission difficulty, mission time limit, 10 days. Bai Xiaowen curled his lips. I have to be detained for another 10 days before I can resume my normal identity as a foreign student. The main mission happens to be 10 days. The E-class ticket is indeed a bit useless. However, the initial identity given by the E-class ticket is not used under normal circumstances. I can't avoid the fate of being an unregistered citizen. Bai Xiaowen suddenly raised his wrist. With a snap, the stainless steel handcuffs broke from the middle. He took out the Desert Eagle and shot at the camera in the corner of the room. Then, he raised his hand to summon the Wrath Claw and used the Black Soul Stone's additional skill, Return of the Dead. 6 summoned creatures appeared one after another. The wrath claw slammed into the door of the detention room, and the lock was sent flying. Bai Xiaowen charged out with a group of summoned creatures. As soon as he stepped out of the door, he shot 4 times, shattering all 4 surveillance cameras that had been detected by the mental scanning ability in advance. "Hey!" A Japanese policeman rushed out from the corridor around the corner and said angrily, "You seen a pig?" Then, he saw a group of skeletons and a giant wolf, as well as Bai Xiaowen in a strange Taoist robe. He suddenly felt a little confused. In Bai Xiaowen's palm, the light of the 4-colored talisman shone. He chose the yellow talisman. Hit. The enemy's strength ratio is 0. 118, 1. The bewitching talisman has successfully confused you. Fukuoka City Police Station Level 2 Patrol Officer Yaduchiki has been confused. Bai Xiaowen immediately activated his telepathy ability and quickly went through the police officer's memory fragments. He found the information about Li Shui. Under the power of the E-Class ticket, Miss Li was not spared. She was also locked up in the detention center as a foreign student. Go open all the doors of the detention rooms. Uncuff all the prisoners inside, regardless of their gender or age. After giving this order, Bai Xiaowen went straight to the detention center's control room. Then, he ordered the skeletons to go to the archives room. The archives room was set ablaze. After Bai Xiaowen killed a few policemen, the fire successfully spread to the entire detention center building. Chapter 148. In a cafe 2 streets away from the burning police station, Bai Xiaowen and Li Shui sat opposite each other. Through the gaps of the skyscrapers, they could see plumes of black smoke coming out. Many citizens were whispering about the fire in the police station and the escape of the prisoners. Some people were worried about the security of Fukuoka City, but there were still a considerable number of people who were very happy about the bad luck of the police station. It was enough to show the awkward position of the police in the chaotic and violent South Island. The two sat in the corner, and Li Shui whispered, "After entering the spiritual realm, I leveled up directly." She then sent all her information to Li Shui. Li Shui's Zephyr Swordsman class had leveled up to level 2. His strength had become 12, Gold Bone Gauntlet +2, his constitution was 9, his spirit was 5, and his most important dexterity had risen to 17, Bone Gauntlet +3. In terms of skills, Li Shui learned the skill book, Brutal Charge, dropped by the Centaur leader. Brutal Charge, 2-star skill. Launch a charge at a target within 25 meters, causing moderate physical damage based on strength and movement speed. The target will be knocked back a short distance. During the charge, the user will be in the super armor state and immune to control skills below priority 5. This skill costs 3 spirit. Cooldown time, 5 minutes. This barbaric charge skill was a very powerful charging skill. It was a must-have skill for a melee DPS class like Li Shui. Moreover, it also had a high priority of immunity to status effects. Moreover, Li Shui's +3 accessory, Demonic Fire Jade Pendant, had the skill, Demonic Fire Dance, which would become stronger as the user leveled up. After activating it, it would add fire damage equal to the user's level *3. Previously, each attack would add 3 points. Now that it had leveled up to level 2, each attack would add 6 points. Li Shui looked around and whispered, "Xiaowen, is it okay for us to be so high profile?" "Yes, this is the most optimal choice." Bai Xiaowen tapped the table lightly with his finger and said softly, "The most precious thing for us in the spirit realm is time. I looked at the date of detention, and we will only be released after 10 days. That is the maximum time we can stay here. So, it's necessary to come out early. Actually, if you want to come out, there are other gentler ways." The discipline of the Fukuoka police station was lax, and corruption was most likely rampant within the police station. When it was time to deliver food, I would find an opportunity to bribe a high-ranking police officer. That way, I should be able to leave the detention center peacefully. But doing so will waste half a day to a day's time. Bai Xiaowen continued to explain, in addition, we also need to consider the other party's insatiable greed and the possibility of overreaching themselves. This peace plan is not cost-effective. Li Shi smiled and said, sure enough. Is it the most efficient to use your fists? This doesn't seem like your style. Last time in the Three Kingdoms, you schemed all sorts of things. That's the second reason, Bai Xiaowen said. The world of the King of Fighters and the world of the Three Kingdoms cannot be compared. Their values are completely different. The mainstream concept of the Three Kingdoms world is benevolence and righteousness. Liu Bei left Shuzhou 3 times for the sake of reputation, Guan Yu was arrogant and did not want to owe anyone anything, and Zhao Yun was even more of a gentleman who could be bullied. My calculations in the Three Kingdoms world were based on this. As long as I grasped the weakness of a famous historical general, I would be able to reap unexpected benefits. But in the world of the King of Fighters, chaos and violence are the mainstream concepts. Any calculations are illusory. The power of the fist is everything. Moreover, the difficulty of the world of the King of Fighters is much lower than that of the Three Kingdoms world. With the strength of the two of us, as long as we don't provoke the encirclement of multiple storyline powerhouses, we can do whatever we want. Li Shi was a little enthralled as he listened. He smiled and said, you released all the prisoners and destroyed the video and camera in the control room. Can this prevent the police from finding us? Bai Xiaowen shook his head and said, we can't hide. Don't forget that we still have to do the main mission to increase our reputation, so the police will almost certainly suspect us and find us. Then, what should we do? Bai Xiaowen said, I have 2 plans. Let's execute plan A first. In a duplex bungalow at number 5 to 10, Chikuzen, Fukuoka City. An RV was parked in front of the duplex bungalow. The driver was Yadu Simiai, a second-level patrol officer. This is the house of Fukuoka City Police Superintendent Honda. Bai Xiaowen sat in the passenger seat and looked at the bungalow through the window. I plan to use the spell switch skill to control him. If I can do it, it will save us a lot of effort. Yadu Simiai got out of the car and knocked on the door. A middle-aged woman came out first. After exchanging a few words with Yadu Simiai, she turned her head and called into the bungalow. Then, Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi saw the person they were looking for, Superintendent Honda, walking out of the bungalow. Yadu-kun? Superintendent Honda's voice was a little surprised. Why are you here? The police station just had a fire, and you're one of the missing people. What happened? Through the window of the passenger seat, Bai Xiaowen first used his insight skill. Honda Accord/Challenge Level 1, Race, Humanoid/Human, Attributes, Strength 7, Agility 6, Constitution 5, Spirit 3. Seeing the information shared by Bai Xiaowen, Li Shi said, this superintendent is really weak. He doesn't even have a skill. Bai Xiaowen did not look relaxed. He held his right palm flat, and the light of the 4-color spell flashed. He tried to use the Charm of Confusion skill on Superintendent Honda. However, before the skill was used, Bai Xiaowen received a prompt. The target's status is too high to be confused. The Charm of Confusion will not confuse the target, but only stun the target. Do you want to continue? Bai Xiaowen exhaled and put away the spell. He had thought about the possibility of not being able to control a high-status target before. If he could use the Charm of Confusion to control the target, no matter how high the target's status was, then the effect of the charm skill in the exploration of the spiritual world would be too amazing. Superintendent Honda was still asking, but Yadu Simiai did something very rude. He turned around and ran back to the driver's seat of the RV. He started the car and left quickly, leaving Superintendent Honda with a confused expression. Plan A has failed. Let's carry out Plan B. Bai Xiaowen had been mentally prepared for failure. He explained to Li Shi, let's drive to Shikatachi now. It's the territory of another mafia force. You want to eliminate the mafia? Li Shi found that he could not keep up with Bai Xiaowen's train of thought. Chapter 149. I understand now. The Fukuoka Mafia runs rampant and is more useful than the police. As long as we have a certain status in the Mafia, we can create 2 fake identities. Li Shi quickly figured out Bai Xiaowen's second plan. Bai Xiaowen clapped softly. After driving for a while, the RV stopped outside a large club in Kitamichi. Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi got out of the RV. "Xiaowen, your outfit, aren't you going to disguise yourself?" Li Shi tugged at Bai Xiaowen's Taoist robe and whispered. Li Shi was wearing the ordinary white, Special Forces combat uniform, paired with an ordinary pair of jeans gifted by the spirit realm. Although it was a little strange for a girl to wear a tight combat uniform, it was not too eye-catching. Bai Xiaowen's Taoist robe was a little strange, and with the jeans peeking out from the bottom of the robe, it was undoubtedly even more out of place. Bai Xiaowen smiled and shook his head. "Shi, you just need to stay by my side as a guard and act cold and aloof. As for the rest, just watch me perform." The two walked into the bar. Under the colorful lights, groups of men and women were wildly twisting their bodies to the heavy metal music. "Sir, do you have a ticket?" 2 burly security guards stopped Bai Xiaowen, who was dressed strangely. After confirming that Bai Xiaowen did not have a ticket, one of the security guards extended his hand. "Hello sir, a ticket for men is 2,000 yen, and free for women." "Xiaowen, do you still have money?" Li Shi paused and thought of the second important question. Before Bai Xiaowen left the detention center, he found more than 1,000 yen in change on the policeman, and he spent most of it in the cafe. Slap. Bai Xiaowen slapped one of the security guards. "What a joke. It's your honor to have me in such a despicable place, and you're charging me a ticket?" The 2 security guards had bright tattoos on their bodies, but they were a little confused after being slapped by Bai Xiaowen. For a moment, they couldn't figure out where Bai Xiaowen came from. The man who was beaten up even bowed. "Sir, I'm sorry. May I know who you are and what identification do you have?" "Pa." The other side of the bowing man's face was slapped again. "What kind of bullshit certificate is that? Call your manager, call your cadre out." Bai Xiaowen kicked him again. Li Shi was somewhat dazed by this scene. However, the way she stood with her hand on her sword perfectly fulfilled the cold and aloof image that Bai Xiaowen had described. Even though he was being beaten and kicked, the unlucky security guard politely greeted him and jogged up the stairs along the corridor. The other security guard who was not beaten quietly moved half a body towards the door. He was still very respectful on the surface, but he was secretly observing. If Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi were just here to have fun and cause trouble, and did not have any frightening abilities or identities, this security guard would immediately block the door and block Bai Xiaowen's escape route. At the same time, he would let Bai Xiaowen know that the Yakuza were not to be trifled with. Not long after, a middle-aged man in a suit with sunglasses and slicked-back hair was led down by the security guard. "I'm Yoshihisa, a senior cadre of the Moriaka Gumi. May I know your name and where are you from?" Bai Xiaowen said calmly, "I'm an exorcist from the National Gate of Huaxia. You can call me by my Japanese name, Shirai Kaori. This is my guard." "An exorcist?" The man with the slick-back hair and sunglasses looked at Bai Xiaowen's Taoist robe in surprise. "Is that true?" In Japan, exorcism was a noble and mysterious profession that wielded supernatural powers. Bai Xiaowen snorted and gently shook his hand. 4 skeleton swords and shields appeared behind him. "These are the ghosts I've subdued. Do you still want to see my Shikigami dog? Every time the Shikigami dog appears, it must devour human blood to be satisfied." The man in the suit and sunglasses was stunned for a moment, then he suddenly bowed 90 degrees. "No, I dare not. Please follow me to a private room upstairs. I'll immediately send someone to report to Rua 2. He thought that his rank was not high enough to contact Bai Xiaowen. Bai Xiaowen put away the skeleton swords and shields, put on airs, and followed the man in the suit and sunglasses upstairs with his hands behind his back. Li Shi was half a body's length behind and followed silently. The security guard who was beaten at the beginning ran to report to Rua 2. The Japanese underworld organizations had a clear hierarchy. It was a pyramid structure. The highest level was the group leader, or president, or something like that, which was related to the name of the organization. It was equivalent to the chairman of a company. The next level was Rua 2, who was responsible for assisting the boss in managing the organization. At the same time, he was also the next boss, which was equivalent to the general manager. In large organizations, there would be Rua 2 assistant, which was the vice president. The next level was the cadre, whose scientific name was Rua 2. The member with the lowest seniority was called Ling D. The man who Bai Xiaowen beat up just now was probably not even a Ling D. A Ling D could only be a Ling D after passing an assessment and completing a task. Usually, they were not used to guard the door. The private room on the second floor of the bar was simple and elegant. There was even a calligraphy hanging on the wall, which read "Peace and Quiet." Bai Xiaowen was not interested in the tea ceremony of a beautiful tea artist. He sat on the tatami and waited with narrowed eyes. Since he had accepted the identity of an exorcist, he had to have the style of an exorcist. Not long after, footsteps sounded on the stairs, and a thin middle-aged man about 40 or 50 years old came in. The man in sunglasses, Yoshihisa, stood up and bowed 90 degrees. "Greetings, Moriaka-sama." Li Shi was a little nervous, but when she saw Bai Xiaowen still sitting lazily on the tatami, she calmed down and stood beside Bai Xiaowen, keeping her cool and not saying a word. Yoshihisa hurriedly introduced him. The thin middle-aged man raised his hand and said, "No need, Yoshihisa-kun. You can leave first." After Yoshihisa left, the thin middle-aged man stared at Bai Xiaowen. "I'm Moriaka Masao, the Rua 2 of Moriaka Gumi. Shiroya Shikuen is an international student from Huaxia, right? The police have no clue about the arson case in the Fukuoka Police Detention Center. It seems that Shiroya Shikuen is the culprit." Bai Xiaowen said proudly, "A bunch of ignorant mortals. I've already given them a chance." Moriaka Masao said, "Shiroya Shikuen, can you explain why you were detained in the police station for 5 days as an exorcist?" Bai Xiaowen had already thought of an excuse. He said coldly, "The result of the divination is that there will be bad omens in the next 5 days. I entered the police station to seek luck and avoid disaster. Otherwise, the Fukuoka police can't do anything to me." Moriaka Masao nodded. "Thank you, Shiroya Shikuen. May I ask why Shiroya Shikuen came to Moriaka Gumi's territory?" Chapter 150. Moriaka Masao's breathing was heavy for a moment, but it quickly returned to normal. He cautiously said, "Shirai-kun, why do you say that?" Bai Xiaowen had already grasped his thoughts from the subtle changes in his expression. He leaned back and lazily said, "I've roughly looked around. The most profitable territory in Fukuoka is occupied by the largest local organization, the Matsuzaki Society. As the second largest organization, your Moriaka Gumi can only eat leftovers in the remote Kitamichi. As the head of the Moriaka Gumi, if you don't have the intention to replace the Matsuzaki Society as the #1 organization in Fukuoka, then you're not qualified." Moriaka Masao was silent for a few seconds, but he still shook his head and said, "Shirai-kun, you don't know. The Matsuzaki Society is deeply rooted and powerful. It's really not easy to deal with them. What if you count my help?" Bai Xiaowen leaned forward and said to Moriaka Masao with his slightly widened eyes, "Although entering the police station is in line with my original intention of avoiding the omen, the Matsuzaki Society's offense to me is still unforgivable. If Moriaka Gumi can afford it, I don't mind helping you in completely erasing the Matsuzaki Society from the map of Fukuoka." Moriaka Masao hesitated for a moment and slowly said, "Please forgive my offense. Shirai-kun is a noble exorcist, but I haven't seen his strength with my own eyes. The Matsuzaki Society has 3 extremely powerful generals. If Shirai-kun can kill these 3, the Matsuzaki Society is nothing to be afraid of." Bai Xiaowen sneered, "You've got a good plan. After killing the 3 generals of the Matsuzaki Society, the Moriaka Gumi can dominate Fukuoka without me, right?" Moriyaka Masao said seriously, if Shiraikuin can really do it, the Moriyaka Gumi will definitely reward you handsomely. Bai Xiaowen faintly shook his head, I'm not interested in these empty promises. To prove my strength, I'll kill one of the 3 generals first, and then discuss the cooperation with you. Give me the information of the Matsuzaki Society. Moriyaka Masao nodded and made a phone call. While waiting, Bai Xiaowen said, I can't use this identity anymore, and I don't have time to deal with the police. Moriyaka Masao said without hesitation, that's a small problem. I'll get someone to do it right away. I'll be able to provide you with new IDs soon. Bai Xiaowen didn't thank him. He nodded slightly and said, then there's no other problem. Later, send the information, documents, and deposit over. Soon, you will see the head of one of the Matsuzaki Society's generals. A notification from the spirit realm sounded, Side Mission 1, proof activated. Mission objective, kill 3 important members of the Matsuzaki Society, at least one person Takaichi Matsumoto, Kiya Azanuma, and Yoshihiro Watanabe. Mission difficulty, A-. Mission time limit, 24 hours. Mission reward, unknown. Moriyaka Masao left the private room. It had to be said that the mafia was very efficient. Not long after, 2 brand new identity documents, a document bag, and 2 stacks of large denominations of Japanese yen were placed on the table in the private room. Bai Xiaowen took out the information in the document bag and flipped through it. The information was very detailed. It seemed that the Moriyaka Gumi had been collecting information on the Matsuzaki Society for a long time. In particular, the information on the 3 generals of the Matsuzaki Society was extremely detailed. Even their social relationships and important relatives were clear at a glance. Li Shi counted the deposit and said, they gave a deposit of 200,000 yen. Bai Xiaowen pursed his lips and said, it's only in yen. The Moriyaka Gumi is really stingy. It probably has something to do with the fact that we didn't show any proof of our allegiance. But it doesn't matter since we can't take the banknotes out of this plane. There should be surveillance here. Let's go. After leaving the bar, Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi walked for a while and turned into an alley. Not long after, someone secretly followed them. When he turned around, he saw Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi quietly waiting for him. The person was stunned for a moment. Li Shi had already made his move. The refined sword stabbed out and stopped at the side of the person's neck. I'll spare your life. Go back and tell Moriyaka Masao not to play any tricks, Bai Xiaowen said lightly. Get out of here. The Yakuza member nodded his head like a chicken pecking at rice. He was so scared that he pissed his pants and left. He was just a small fry with a challenge rating of less than level 2. He was overestimating himself by trying to follow Bai Xiaowen, who had 26 points of mental strength and the ability to scan the mind. Now that the identity is settled, what do we do next? Moriyaka Gumi's reputation hasn't been unlocked. It should be because they're too small and can't be considered an official faction at all, Li Shi said. Bai Xiaowen nodded and said, I originally wanted to leave with a fake identity and go to the 3 Sacred Weapons clan. But I found something interesting in the information provided by the Moriyaka Gumi about the Matsuzaki Society. So, the first step of the side mission, proof. What's the content? Li Shi asked curiously. Bai Xiaowen took out a piece of paper from the folder and said, look at this person's information. Li Shi took it and said, Takaichi Namachi, 34 years old this year, one of the 3 generals of the Matsuzaki Society. Well, he has no relatives. In terms of social connections, he has a little brother called Yamazaki Ruji. Wait, Yamazaki Ruji? Isn't that the King of Fighters, a famous storyline character in the world? That's right. According to the information, Yamazaki Ruji grew up in an orphanage. He showed the characteristics of a delinquent when he was young. When he was 13 years old, he met Takaichi Namachi, a member of the mafia organization. Namachi took care of him a lot and even taught Yamazaki Ruji his unique skills. He's the only person Yamazaki Ruji respects, Bai Xiaowen closed his eyes slightly and recited the information he had prepared. Finally, he said, when I received the mission, the name Takaichi Namachi didn't catch my attention. After all, there's a possibility that the surname could overlap. But after I received the information and saw Yamazaki Ruji's name in the little brother column, I could more or less conclude. Bai Xiaowen continued, from the perspective of the storyline, Yamazaki Ruji is not only an underworld general, but also an important servant of the world-destroying serpent, one of the members of the 8 heroes of the Heavenly Kingdom. Although he's extremely selfish and has no loyalty to the serpent, which is why he's spurned by the other members of the 8 heroes, his identity is still destined to be in the world-destroying camp. If we can kill him and go to the 3 Sacred Weapons clan, the prestige and importance we'll receive will definitely be much higher than if we go empty-handed. Chapter 151. Li Shi said in disbelief, Yamazaki Ruji is a strong character in the storyline. He should be much stronger than Takaichi Kancho, right? Why isn't he one of the 3 generals in the Matsuzaki Society? Maybe it's because of seniority. Japan's industry tradition is based on seniority. The older the seniority, the higher the position. It's the same in the Yakuza. Unless their boss dies or retires, the underlings can't be promoted through normal means. And Yamazaki Ruji values Kancho the most. He will definitely protect Kancho's safety. Tojoji. A group of men in black suits surrounded a tall man in a kimono as they entered the temple gate. The tall man in the kimono seemed to be very familiar with Tojoji. He followed a small path through 2 arches and walked to the back garden, in front of a small wooden house. Is Ruji here? The tall man in the kimono looked around. Master Kancho, Yamazaki-kun said he will be here soon. A man in a black suit said respectfully. Forget it. You guys wait here. Don't come in without my order. The tall man in the kimono, who was one of the 3 generals in the Matsuzaki Society, Takaichi Kancho, ordered. He walked to the door of the small wooden house and knocked on the door. Please come in. A familiar old voice came. Takaichi Kancho put his hands together, opened the door, and walked in. In the small wooden house, there were 2 futons and a tea table. An old man wearing a tall black hat was staring at the teacup on the tea table. Master Ji Chuan, I'm here to disturb you again. Takaichi Kancho nodded slightly and closed the door. He walked to the opposite side of the old man and sat cross-legged on the other futon. Takaichi Kancho skillfully poured water and looked at the old man. Master seems to have something on your mind. You're not as detached as usual. Master Ji Chuan shook his head mechanically and raised his teacup slightly. Takaichi Kancho also raised his cup and drank. Master Ji Chuan, I killed 2 people the day before yesterday. I'm quite regretful. Takaichi Kancho sighed and said, however, I'm already in deep trouble. If I don't kill them, the interests of the organization will be damaged. The president will also hold me accountable. For the sake of interests, I can only take action. Wizard Ji Chuan nodded slightly. Sakura Takaichi continued, I will offer the ill-gotten gains to the temple and add some incense to seek forgiveness from the Buddha. Wizard Ji Chuan remained silent. Instead, Takaichi asked curiously, Master Ji Chuan, you seem to be acting very strange today. Suddenly, a voice sounded from next door. No matter how much ill-gotten wealth you give away, it's useless. You'll go to hell after you die. Takaichi Kancho's expression changed, and he stood up abruptly. Master Yoshikawa, why are there outsiders here? A strong gust of wind gushed out from Takaichi Kaneshima's body. Wizard Ji Chuan, who was facing him, raised his head slightly, but fell down facing the sky. His pupils were already dilated. Bai Xiaowen lifted the bamboo curtain and walked out. There's no need to look. This monk who helped you dispose of the stolen goods is already my servant. I gave up my control over him, so his soul naturally dissipated. You! Infuriated, Takayoshi smashed the coffee table, took a step forward and threw a punch at Bai Xiaowen. However, this punch became weak and powerless halfway through. Takaichi Kancho clutched his stomach and fell down, his face full of shock and anger. Bai Xiaowen took half a step back, shook his head and said, "Have you forgotten that you drank a cup of tea when you entered the house? Just stay still. The more you move, the faster the poison will take effect." Bai Xiaowen had already seen Takaichi Kancho's attributes with his insight. He was a level 5 elite. If they were to fight normally, it would take a lot of effort. Crash! The door of the wooden house opened, and a group of ordinary triads in suits rushed in. "Master Kancho. Who are these two people? How dare they poison us?" The men in black suits rushed forward. Li Shi drew his sword and stabbed one of the men in black suits in the throat. After a critical hit, his sword flashed, and he used the combo slash skill to kill another man. Bai Xiaowen did not attack, and let Li Shi fight. He stacked the two passive skills to the maximum. Crash! Suddenly, the door of the wooden house was smashed, and a long black shadow, like a black snake, came out. Its target was Li Shi. Bai Xiaowen's expression changed slightly. He had been using his mental strength to scan the house, but he did not find anyone outside. Who else could avoid his mental strength scan and sneak into the wooden house other than Yamazaki Ruji? This black snake shadow was Yamazaki Ruji's signature skill, Snake Fist, middle level. Before the attack arrived, a cold wind pressure locked onto Li Shi, as if it had sealed off every angle of escape. Li Shi, who had more than 22 points of dexterity, had no room to escape with his talent. Li Shi's vitality was lower. If he were to take this attack, his HP would be reduced by more than half, and he would lose his ability to fight. Bai Xiaowen did not hesitate to pounce, and he crossed his arms in front of him to block the attack. A soft force came, and Bai Xiaowen's body was sent flying a few feet. He staggered a few steps back, and his HP dropped by more than 40 points. Such high damage. Bai Xiaowen was slightly surprised. Bai Xiaowen's vitality was as high as 17, and his defense was as high as 19. Yet, he was hit with such a heavy HP reduction. If it were Li Shi, who only had 9 points of vitality and 10 points of defense, it would be difficult for him to survive the attack. "Damn you, little bastard." A young man whose hair was dyed yellow in the middle and still had black hair at the temples barged in. He was tall and muscular, wearing a black singlet, a black vest, and suit trousers. He also wore black half-gloves. He was the storyline powerhouse of the King of Fighters tournament, Yamazaki Ruji. When Yamazaki Ruji rushed in, he saw Takechi Kaneshima lying on the ground, twitching in pain. His eyes turned red. He took a deep breath, and stood in front of Takechi Kaneshima, and confronted Bai Xiaowen. "Which organization are you from?" If Takechi Kaneshima did not drag him down, Yamazaki Ruji would not have asked so many questions. He would have just rushed in and killed them. Bai Xiaowen said, "You don't need to know. Today, you and your brother will die here." Bai Xiaowen waved his hand, and the skill, Return of the Dead, was activated. Four skeletal sword wielders stepped forward, protecting Li Shi, and rushed towards Yamazaki Ruji. At the same time, Bai Xiaowen used insight. Yamazaki Ruji, leader level 5, /challenge rating, 12, race, humanoid/human, class, street fighter, attributes, strength 40, agility 26, vitality 33, spirit 17, skills, uproar killing technique, roll, rage burst. Level 5 leader. Such strong attributes. Chapter 152. Yamazaki Ruji stood in front of Zentetsu. The scorching bullets hit his body, causing streaks of blood to splatter. Bai Xiaowen saw that the bullet only caused 4 to 5 points of damage to Yamazaki Ruji. Compared to Yamazaki Ruji's 330 HP, it was like scratching an itch. He could not help but be speechless. What a high defense. Li Shi's attack power was slightly higher than Bai Xiaowen's. She could deal around 7 to 8 points of damage to Yamazaki Ruji. However, Bai Xiaowen could not stop Li Shi's attack speed. With the support of her double passive that had been stacked 10 times, her attacks were like the wind. Within a few seconds, she had reduced 1/10 of Yamazaki Ruji's HP. Yamazaki Ruji let out a beast-like roar and slammed his fist into the load-bearing pillar of the wooden house. Under the monstrous 40 points of strength, the load-bearing pillar of the wooden house was broken and the house collapsed. At the moment of collapse, Yamazaki Ruji bent down and hugged Zentetsu, breaking through the wooden house's wall and rushing out. Li Shi pulled by Xiaowen's hand and rushed out of the wooden house's main door. However, the skeleton swordsmen were not so lucky. They were crushed under the collapsed wooden house. Fortunately, the wooden house was built with light materials. They only suffered some minor injuries and crawled out. "Be careful, Yamazaki Ruji is going to run away," Li Shi whispered. Bai Xiaowen scanned with his psychic power and shook his head. "No." The dust from the wooden house's collapse dispersed. In the backyard, Yamazaki Ruji could be seen holding his fingers and walking over with a cold expression. Zentetsu was placed under a cherry blossom tree, dozens of steps away from the battlefield. However, these dozens of steps were separated by Yamazaki Ruji, a powerful storyline character. "Finally, I can have a good fight. Damn small fries, I'm going to crush you one by one." Bai Xiaowen smiled. "Seems like you like a more open terrain. What a coincidence, I need this kind of battlefield too." With a howl, the raging claw appeared. With a stomp of its 4 claws, it pounced towards Yamazaki Ruji. "Shaman? Exorcist? Or Onmyoji?" Yamazaki Ruji barely guessed a few identities in succession. He raised his hand and struck out with snake fist, upper style. Angry Claw's forward pouncing speed suddenly stopped, forcefully dodging this attack. Yamazaki Ruji strode forward and sneered. "No matter where you come from, what's in front of you is the road to the underworld." A black shadow quickly whipped downwards. It was unexpected and extremely fast, snake fist, lower form. Angry Claw roared in pain as it was struck. It rolled back twice, its HP decreasing by over 30 points. Angry Claw then got back up. The shadow assassin suddenly appeared behind Yamazaki Ruji and stabbed his short sword at his back. However, although Yamazaki Ruji did not specialize in mental strength, he had a beast-like intuition. Before the tip of the blade pierced his flesh, he had already sensed the murderous intent. With a strange cry, he turned around and kicked the shadow assassin's calf. This shovel-like kick sent the shadow assassin into the air. Yamazaki Ruji took out a dagger from his left hand in his trouser pocket and slashed the shadow assassin 4 times. "My flow-killing technique, Dagger of Sanction." The shadow assassin's HP dropped rapidly and it fell to the ground. If it was not for the 50% reduction in physical damage received racial passive, she would have been killed instantly. However, the Wolf King Wrathclaw and the Shadow Assassin took turns to attack and bought some time. The 4 skeleton swordsmen had already climbed out from under the collapsed wooden house and joined the battle. Li Shi bent his body and his whole body was covered in a layer of blood-red light. He charged toward Yamazaki Ruji with all his might. The skill, Reckless Charge, was activated. Its initial activation speed was twice as fast as usual. Moreover, as the charge progressed, its speed continued to increase. Yamazaki Ruji gave up on attacking the Shadow Assassin and turned around. He saw the momentum of Li Shi's charge and rolled to the side to avoid the collision. Rolling was a skill that all the storyline powerhouses in the King of Fighters had mastered. It had a miraculous effect when used to dodge attacks. Of course, it was also because Li Shi's strength and agility attributes were relatively low. Li Shi rushed over and only stopped when he was about 10 meters away. Yamazaki Ruji was about to give chase with a sinister smile when the 4 skeleton swordsmen charged forward fearlessly. They raised their iron swords and slashed down without thinking. Yamazaki Ruji fell into the encirclement of the 4 skeletons. He punched hard, thinking that he could send the weak skeletons in front of him flying. However, the skeletons half-knelt and raised their shields at a slanted angle, causing Yamazaki Ruji's punch to slide off the surface of the iron shield. The shadow assassin also rushed over and waved its two short swords at high speed. With Bai Xiaowen's level 4 single-handed swordsmanship and combat expertise, it basically replicated the superb skills of the sword dancer Leila Hongye. The short swords left small wounds on Yamazaki Ruji's body. Li Shi joined the battle. In the last few seconds, she continued to use her two passive skills, Wind Thunder Combo, and Battle Zeal. Her damage was higher than the Shadow Assassin's. The attack speed of her single-handed sword was almost comparable to the attack speed of the Shadow Assassin's dual swords. The Wolf King Wrathclaw shouldered the responsibility of facing Yamazaki Ruji head-on. It continuously used its two skills, Tear and Laceration, which did not consume any HP, to stack the bleeding effect on Yamazaki Ruji's body. During this time, Bai Xiaowen's long-range attacks did not stop. They continuously and steadily reduced Yamazaki Ruji's HP. Yamazaki Ruji was surrounded and roared. However, every time he counterattacked, his attacks were either blocked by the Wrathclaw or blocked by the Skeleton Swordsman. The Wrathclaw and the Skeleton Swordsman received some damage from the recoil. However, Yamazaki Ruji was surrounded by so many people. No matter how good his combat skills were, there was nothing he could do. His HP dropped like an avalanche. In his rage, Yamazaki Ruji ignored his defense and threw two heavy punches in a row. He forcefully knocked the Skeleton Swordsman into the air. Then, he followed up with a snake fist upper style, smashing it into bone fragments that filled the sky. The price he paid was that Li Shi, the Shadow Assassin, the Wrathclaw, and the others poured all their firepower on him for 5 seconds. His HP had been reduced to less than half. Bastards. If you want to defeat me, you'll have to wait for 100 years. Yamazaki Ruji's eyes were bloodshot and vaguely white. He roared at the sky. A ray of light burst out from his body and sent all the surrounding attackers flying a few steps back. Bai Xiaowen also received a notification: Yamazaki Ruji's combat skill, Rage Explosion, has been activated. Bai Xiaowen narrowed her eyes. This is the moment I've been waiting for. Chapter 153. Bang! 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 The petals of cherry blossoms were accompanied by the splattering of blood as they fell to the ground. No! Yamazaki Ruji had used his Rage Explosion skill and was about to fight when he saw this scene. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Yamazaki Ruji roared and his body glowed. Then, he grabbed Li Shi with his powerful left hand. Li Shi felt like he had nowhere to run. This was the suppression of Yamazaki Ruji's strength and dexterity. The skeleton sword-shielded hand jumped and blocked Li Shi with its skeleton body. Yamazaki Ruji grabbed the skeleton sword-shielded hand by its neck and slammed his head into its head. Boom! A cloud of smoke rose and the skeleton sword-shielded hand's head was blown into pieces. Its bones were scattered all over the ground. My flow-killing technique, Headbutt Bomb. Keep attacking. Shi, use Devil Fire Dance. Bai Xiaowen's voice was as steady as a glacier as he continuously fired shots at the anti-Tachi Takaichi under the cherry blossom tree. Li Shi suppressed his urge to retreat. His whole body was covered with a layer of demonic fire. He stabbed his sword at high speed, each attack adding an additional 6 points of fire damage. When he used Devil Fire Dance, Li Shi's damage increased tremendously. This was because the fire damage ignored the opponent's armor and only counted the opponent's magic resistance. Yamazaki Ruji's black vest and elastic vest had very high defense, but the additional magic resistance was 0. This meant that Yamazaki Ruji had to rely on his constitution to resist the fire damage from Li Shi's Devil Fire Dance. Li Shi's damage was much higher than Wrathclaw's. Under normal circumstances, with Yamazaki Ruji's combat intelligence, he would prioritize attacking Li Shi, who was the biggest threat. Just like his previous choice. However, Yamazaki Ruji didn't care about Li Shi this time. Instead, he took the opportunity to kill another skeleton sword-shielded hand and rush toward his big brother under the cherry tree, Devil Fire Dance. However, by the time he arrived, Devil Fire Dance was already dead. His body was full of bullet holes and blood was flowing out. Pieces of pink cherry blossom petals fell into the pool of blood, bringing with them a kind of poignant and cold poetry. Ah! Yamazaki Ryuji howled. It could be seen that his eyes had already turned white, emitting a deathly white luster. His fists were clenched so tightly that they were even trembling slightly. Spiritual Realms Rules, Yamazaki Ryuji Ryuji's Power. Yamazaki Ryuji, 1 Ryujiyama, Ryuji's Power. While Yamazaki Ryuji. In the Kagura Financial Group, a tall and slender woman wearing a red and white witch costume suddenly opened her eyes and let out a soft cry of surprise. She had black hair that was as shiny as a silk ribbon. It's like, I can feel the evil power stirring. Is it one of Orochi's servants? She closed her eyes and tried to sense it carefully. However, she found that the evil power was short-lived and disappeared without a trace. Yamazaki Ryuji's mind was still intact. All of you will die. Yamazaki Ryuji jumped high and landed in front of Bai Xiaowen. He opened his arms and pulled out a long belt in each of his hands. With a crazy roar, he whipped the belt crazily. The fierce force of the whipping actually covered an area of about 5 meters in front of him. Max Sure Kill Skill, 4th Stage Shooting Kill, activate. The two belts formed a terrifying vortex in front of Bai Xiaowen. The first whipping caused Bai Xiaowen to be paralyzed. He didn't even have the space to dodge. Every whip landed on Bai Xiaowen's body. After taking into account the damage reduction, the damage dealt was close to 10 points. This was not the most terrifying thing. Yamazaki Ryuji's shooting kill was as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, the combo reached 10 hits. Bai Xiaowen's HP dropped by more than half. Bai Xiaowen gritted his teeth and used the deterrence skill. This skill did not require any casting action. It could be used even when the target was paralyzed. However, he received a notification. When Yamazaki Ryuji used his Max Sure Kill skill, Shooting Kill, he was immune to all control skills below priority 6. Fortunately, when Yamazaki Ryuji went berserk, Bai Xiaowen had already ordered the remaining summon creatures to move closer to him. At this time, the skeleton sword shield bearers arrived. They rushed forward and blocked Yamazaki Ryuji's ultimate skill with their shields. The whipping continued like a storm. One of the skeleton sword shield bearers only took 3 hits before they turned into ashes. The 2 skeleton sword shield bearers only took 5 hits. Of course, this was also because the skeleton sword shield bearers did not have enough HP. The shadow assassin blocked in front. It had the racial passive ability of all physical damage received reduced by 50%. It lasted a little longer. After 5 hits, its HP dropped to 0 and it turned into black smoke and dissipated. However, the 3 summon creatures helped Bai Xiaowen by precious time. The Wolf King Wrathclaw howled and activated its howl skill. A blood-red light shrouded Li Shi and Bai Xiaowen. At the same time, it rushed over from behind and pushed Yamazaki Ryuji, who was paralyzed, to the ground. This was Bai Xiaowen's Wrathclaw ultimate skill, Suppression. After Li Shi's brutal charge was dodged, Bai Xiaowen realized that most of the storyline powerhouses in the King of Fighters world were grandmasters of combat. They should have the roll skill and were very good at dodging in a small area. If the Wrathclaw's ultimate skill was used rashly, Yamazaki Ryuji might be able to dodge it since he was at a disadvantage in terms of strength and agility. Now, Yamazaki Ryuji had his back to the Wrathclaw and was using his ultimate skill. He was undoubtedly the best target. The suppression lasted for 2.5 seconds. A total of 5 claw attacks brought about a severe bleeding effect. At this time, Yamazaki Ryuji was left with close to 1/3 of his HP, 100 points. Taking into account his high defense, even if Bai Xiaowen and the Wrathclaw went all out, they could only deal 20 to 30 points of damage in 2 5 seconds. It was not enough to kill him. However, beside Bai Xiaowen, there was a powerful DPS, damage dealer, that could not be ignored. Under the Wrath Claw's Howl skill and her 2 passive bonuses, Li Shi's attack speed had increased to the point where it was comparable to 30 points of agility. She rushed forward, the dance of devil fire bringing with it sparks of fire. Her refined rapier drew a silver phantom as she stabbed at high speed. Vital hit. Critical hit. Vital hit. Vital hit. Critical hit, in a short 2.5 seconds, Li Shi deeply understood the meaning of a DPS, damage dealer. Give me space and time to attack, and a DPS can solve all your problems. During the 2.5 seconds of suppression, Li Shi's damage was almost equal to the total damage of Bai Xiaowen and the Wrath Claw. More than a third of the damage was caused by the demonic fire dance. Bang! Yamazaki Ruji suddenly flipped over the Wrath Claw and stood up, his body covered in blood. However, before he could do anything, the 4-colored talisman in Bai Xiaowen's palm had already lit up. The yellow bewitching talisman had locked on and hit. Enemy strength ratio, 3, 166, 1. The bewitching talisman has failed and turned into a stun effect. Enemy spirit ratio, 1726. Target will be stunned for 3 seconds. It was over. During the 2.5 seconds of suppression, Yamazaki Ruji's HP had dropped to 50 points, and now he was stunned for 3 seconds. Li Shi's dance of devil fire was still in effect, Bai Xiaowen's spirit could still support the rapid fire mode, and although the Wrath Claw did not have any ultimate skills, the level 2 mutant leader's damage was also considerable, not to mention, the heavy bleeding effect that the Wrath Claw and Li Shi had inflicted on Yamazaki Ruji was continuously draining his HP. Thump! Yamazaki Ruji fell on his back. A gentle breeze blew, and cherry blossoms fell. The petals sprinkled on the tall, blood-stained body. Chapter 154. Bai Xiaowen heaved a sigh of relief. This battle was daunting but not dangerous. After Bai Xiaowen controlled the old monk, Ji Chuan, everything was going according to his plan. Yamazaki Ruji was indeed very strong. He killed all of Bai Xiaowen's summoned undead creatures. Even Bai Xiaowen's HP dropped by more than half. Although they were both level 5 leaders, Yamazaki Ruji was much stronger than Zhu Ji, the doctor from the Three Kingdoms plane. After all, Zhu Ji was a support-type leader. The more soldiers he had, the better he could perform. Yamazaki Ruji's class was a street fighter. Spiritual Realm notification: your combat experience has been maxed out. It has been detected that you can level up in the Spiritual Realm plane. Do you wish to level up? Bai Xiaowen chose to level up. A warm current flowed through him and he leveled up to level 3. Strength, Agility, Vitality +2, Spirit +5. Spiritual Realm notification: growth type special equipment, Black Soul Stone has been maxed out. Current growth is Soul Essence, 106. Bai Xiaowen did not choose to level up for the time being. Yamazaki Ruji's gorgeous golden treasure chest was still waiting to be opened. The battle evaluation for killing Yamazaki Ruji was A, and there were 3 draws. It was worth mentioning that as one of the 3 generals of the Matsuzaki Society, Takaichi Sakura had also dropped a treasure chest. However, after killing the defenseless Takaichi Sakura with poison, the battle evaluation given by the Spiritual Realm was very low. It was only level E, and the probability of a free draw was as high as 2/3. It was considered an elite treasure chest with a lot of water. In fact, it was already very surprising that a treasure chest could be dropped. I'll go first. Leave this elite treasure chest to me. Bai Xiaowen did not feel any pressure when facing a treasure chest with a lot of water. He pressed his hand on the treasure chest and chose to open it. Then, he randomly chose a card. When he opened the card, the first thing he saw was that the front of the card was not blank. Li Shi had already revealed a smile. Then, his smile turned into surprise. This is a skill book? Bai Xiaowen laughed heartily. Looks like my luck is not that bad. Could it be that the unlucky hand encountered the water treasure chest and created a negative effect? Li Shi covered his mouth and laughed, ignoring Bai Xiaowen's smugness. Notification: you have obtained a skill book, My Flow Hubbub Killing Technique, Pseudo, Remnant Scroll. My Style Hustle Killing Technique, Pseudo, Remnant Scroll, 2-star skill. After use, the user can randomly comprehend part of the My Style Hustle Killing Technique's martial arts moves. This skill book was killed by Bai Xiaowen alone. Li Shi had no right to distribute it, so it could only belong to Bai Xiaowen. Fortunately, unlike equipment, skill books could be traded. The value of this skill book isn't high. Bai Xiaowen frowned and made a judgment. I reckon that in the end, we can only learn 1 or 2 of Yamazaki Ruji's moves, and the power will be reduced. Let's open Yamazaki Ruji's treasure chest first. If we get a better skill book, we don't need to learn this. Yamazaki Ruji's golden treasure chest was opened. The two of them drew cards and finally obtained 3 items. Hero level gold equipment, Snake Envoy belt, bound after equipping, elite level blue equipment, black leather shoes, bound after equipping, hero level gold equipment, Yamazaki Ruji's combat gloves, bound after equipping. Their eyes lit up at the same time. A gold equipment that was bound after equipping had appeared. Although this Snake Envoy belt did not have any additional attributes, it came with a rather practical skill, Snake Fist. The only flaw was that the Snake Envoy belt's equipment requirement was a little unpopular. It actually required a level 5 or above whip specialty. Currently, Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi could not equip it. Neither of them had the habit of using a whip. This equipment was temporarily stored by Bai Xiaowen. Black leather shoes was a blue equipment. It added 1 point of agility and increased movement speed by 4%. It was given to Li Shi to equip. Fortunately, there was no fixed size for the equipment, and there was no distinction between men and women. There were equipment shapes suitable for men and women. Otherwise, with Yamazaki Ruji's size 42 feet, it would really be a problem whether Li Shi could wear his leather shoes. After Li Shi put on the black leather shoes, the style changed from the original men's leather shoes to the more small women's leather shoes. The color was still black. The last equipment was Yamazaki Ruji's combat gloves. The gloves added 3 points of strength. In non-combat state, it would accumulate the critical hit rate of physical attacks by 1% every minute until it accumulated to 100%. This equipment was obviously suitable for warriors, especially tank-type professions. Of course, it could also be used by DPS who dealt physical damage. Li Shi already had the gold equipment, Bone Gauntlet. It was a bit of a waste for Bai Xiaowen to equip this equipment. After Bai Xiaowen leveled up and equipped the new equipment, the 4 main attributes became Strength 16 points, Yamazaki Ruji's combat gloves plus 3, Agility 13 points, Vitality 19 points, Steel Teeth Collar plus 2, Spirit 31 points, Enchanter's Robe plus 5, Blue Ring plus 2, Black Soul Stone plus 3. The total attributes were as high as 79 points. It gradually looked like a level 3 boss. On top of Yamazaki Ruji's corpse, there was a dull and irregular crystal. After Bai Xiaowen's finger touched the crystal, the spiritual realm's rules gave a notification: you have obtained a special item, Death Core. This item will definitely drop and will not be included in the list of loot. Death Crystal, the crystal left behind by Yamazaki Ruji, a member of the 8 heroes of the heavenly celestial race. The target, Yamazaki Ruji, must have triggered the power of Orochi at least once to leave this crystal. You can give it to someone who is interested in it and exchange it for an unknown reward. When Li Shi saw this item, he said in surprise, "What a coincidence." What a coincidence, Yamazaki Ruji saw his big brother die in front of him and activated the power of the Orochi. From the information, he had always been dismissive of the mission of the heavenly celestial race and insisted on doing things his own way. He had never triggered the power of Orochi. If he was killed normally, he probably wouldn't drop a crystal. Xiaowen, did you also predict this? When Bai Xiaowen saw Li Shi's surprised expression, he smiled and explained, "That's right. I saw a piece of information in the database. The members of the 8 heroes will drop a type of crystal, but only Yamazaki Ruji won't drop it. I thought of the relationship between Yamazaki Ruji and the power of Orochi, so I deliberately killed Yamazaki Ruji in front of him. Not only could I stall for time to increase the chances of dealing damage, but I could also try to verify this idea of mine." Li Shi's mood was a little complicated. In the end, he poked Bai Xiaowen's chest. "Xiaowen. Don't lie to me in the future. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."